They're coming to get you, Barbara.
And there's no more room in hell.
Have given us such a legacy that none of us involved in the making of this film ever dreamed we would have. I want to take this moment to thank you all for your support, for keeping us alive all these years. Almost 60 will be coming up.
people that love the genre, people that are really into horror, we'll sit around and tell each other, but I saw this movie, man, and you know what happened? And they're laughing all the way, you know, and I'm laughing all the way when we're making one of these. You can be scared, startled, jump out of your chair, scream, and it's not embarrassing. It's perfectly okay. It's why you're there. It's why everybody went. And it's fun that way.
If you're fashion-minded, watch out. Big-time shopping is finally here, Monroeville Mall.
It's so good, dude. It's so good. I've watched that like 10, 15 times now at this point.
It's a love letter to George, for sure. It was just bring the camera. Well, anywhere I go, I'm one of those people that am annoying the living hell out of everybody, but bringing a camera anywhere I'm going. So had to bring one to the mall. So it was the first time in since I was just figuring that out since I posted that video earlier today. 99 is 26 years since I had been there. So
jeez. So that was the first time that you had been there since
then.
Wow.
Believe it or not, yeah. I mean, I'd been to Pennsylvania and everything, but I was actually out on the West Coast for almost 2 decades, and now I'm back on the East Coast. So, but working remotely, yeah. So still
nice.
Working out there, living on the East Coast, on the better coast now.
It's probably for the best. Yeah, we'll just say that. But yeah, man, it's so good. I'm so glad you did that, and it's funny because like. Was that so? I guess that was your first Living Dead weekend.
It was. I mean, I've been which is sad to say, to be honest, because I should have been there 10 years before that. I guess it has been. This was the 10th, right? So
yeah.
But but as you saw, my cousin Josh, who I'd love to get him on at some point, but he was featured in that as well, and it was just he and I rolling around. But he and his brother, he has an identical twin brother. We grew up together, and those guys, like, I sort of introduced them to George's work as a kid myself when I found Night of the Living Dead, like a Good Times home video VHS in my parents' attic. It was like one of those stories, but I just found it in a box, and just and my dad, when I was a kid, had set me up like an edit bay up in the attic, because there was no room for me to have an actual. I had a bedroom, and then I had this edit bay up there. So I'd always be up there, like, working on films and whatnot. But found that film, and it changed my life, It was the first time that I think you could see how the process of making a film. It was really less to do with even the content of zombies, even though I loved the apocalyptic tone of it and everything. But it was the first time I could watch it and say, I could do this, And that was just endlessly inspiring, and still is to me. And I'm still doing a lot of what I'm doing because I really feel because of George and what he pioneered starting back in the 60s. But
Night is the perfect like movie that you'll watch, like, because like when I was younger, I wanted to grow up to be a filmmaker. When I discovered George and I discovered my love of movies, like I always loved movies. Like when I was a kid, like. My parents were pretty liberal about what they allowed me to watch. Like, I always credit my Uncle Mark for introducing me to George, introducing me to a lot of stuff. But it was really my parents that really kind of started it off by they always had like, those like 6-hour-long tapes that just had like 3 movies on them that they would record. They'd rent a movie,
recorded it off TV. Oh, yeah. Or you duped them from the. Oh,
yeah,
totally.
yeah.
You did the same thing.
We never bought
I miss those days.
Yeah. We never bought movies. We would just rent them, record them, and then
Oh, we had the mom and pop place. We would go find. And I had this similar experience. That's where I first saw like Dawn on the Shelf. And anyway, we'll get there. I don't want to.
Probably I think the first horror movie I ever saw on the shelf in a video store was like a little mom and pop store right next to our shopping mall back where I'm from, and there was a little mom and pop video store right next to a stereo and television store, you know, where they'd sell like stereos and TVs and
Right.
stuff, and VCRs. So of course they put a video store right next to it, and that's the one we would always go to. And when I was a kid, I would just go to the kids section and get like Mickey Mouse or some Disney thing or whatever. It was usually like a cartoon. I was interested in the cartoons. I didn't really never really cared about Disney, but
Right.
you know, like just the old Mickey Mouse cartoons or Baby Huey. I remember watching Baby Huey all the fucking time when I was a kid. And then somehow I just wandered through this store and ended up in the horror section, and the first thing I see is Bub on the cover of the media VHS, and it's
He's around
freaked
here
me.
somewhere.
It
Oh,
freaked
God.
me the fuck out. Like that was my introduction to like monsters, and I thought it was the
Yeah.
scariest thing I ever saw. But
Honestly, still unbeatable. Like that should have been the key art for the original one sheet, you know?
yeah, yeah.
Even though I
No,
love the original, but I still, man, that you know what it was for the video release was an unbelievable.
yeah, I always say that. I'm like I've never been a big fan of the actual poster art. It just the look of the zombie or whatever just looks more like a mummy to me, and it's just I don't
Right.
know, it didn't
Yeah,
work
a
for
little
me.
bit more of a sandy look. I've got an
Yeah,
original
yeah.
on this wall here. If I could spin it around, I'm not going to, but yeah. I've got an original Creep Show, pre-release Creep Show over here, and I've got, I'm in my edit bay right now. So, but yeah, there's George all over. Christopher Lee's behind me, but I got to get
Oh,
another
well,
one, then it'll be fully George in here.
yeah. I think my buddy
But
Will would be a big fan of that poster back there. He's big
oh,
into
Taste the Blood of
Hammer stuff.
Dracula.
Oh
Oh
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
I
Oh
see
yeah, I
the
grew up on Hammer.
Day of the
So.
Dead vinyl back there. I got mine back there. You
Oh
kind of
yeah.
see it up above there, but um,
John Harrison's on there. I before I left LA, I guess this is 2023. He was at Dark Delicacies, which at the time was still open, so horror shop in Burbank, and an amazing place. But went over and got to talk to him for a good long time, and there weren't that many people in there. I was just
yeah,
standing there
really.
talking to him for an hour. It was amazing. Yeah. So
I've met John once at Living Dead Weekend. I think it was 2023. I think it was
right.
23, 22 maybe. I can't remember. But yeah, super super cool guy. Like
Oh,
he was there with Michael Felsher, and they
right.
were just breaking each other's balls back and forth. I was like, I'm a big fan of yours, Mr. Harrison. He was like, oh, thanks. And I was like, I loved you in Effects. And he was like, oh,
Uh,
really? I was like, yeah,
go to the
you're
deep dive.
yeah. I was like, dude, like your performance. Well, it's really the only movie he really actually had like a performance in, and I thought
Oh,
he
for
was really,
sure.
really good in it. And I was like, dude, you should have done more acting. You
Oh,
know, I
he is
loved your
great.
performance in it.
I love that film. I actually, yeah, I've got the AGFA Blu-ray, as which I'm sure we all do, but
Oh yeah,
I
yeah.
actually hadn't seen that one up until a few years ago,
I had
and
neither.
until that real, yeah, I'm so glad that got a second life with that release. It was awesome.
Yeah, that was
But
one of those movies that was like lost to time for decades. Like it came out like a very small release in the early 80s and then just disappeared. I didn't think it had a VHS release. Like it didn't have a release until I think it was Synapse did the DVD in the early
okay,
2000s. But it was like a limited run and it wasn't really readily available until here
right.
recently. And yeah, it's just one of those like forgotten classics. But I told him, I was like, dude, I loved your performance in that. And he was like, yeah, if you want to call that a performance, I guess. I was like, oh, yeah, you know.
Uh,
Um, but yeah, I mean, John's a super cool guy. Hopefully he'll be at Living Dead Weekend next
I
year.
was just about to say, I probably said that to you. I think we were talking. Now it's ringing a bell. I think I mentioned that to you. I was like, why is he not in October, but like for the Day of the Dead, for the 40th in June? I was like,
Yeah,
why is he
yeah.
here? Probably had things going on, but
Yeah,
which
I
is
haven't
totally
asked
get.
about that.
Hope he's there next year.
I'm hoping that he will. I know they're going to try to reach out to him if nothing else, and
Yeah,
you know we'll see. But yeah, but yeah,
I'm sure.
just going back to like Night of the Living Dead and just being like the inspire, like first finding George and all that, like becoming like I don't know if you've ever seen. I actually had it right. I wanted to ask you about this anyway. Have you ever seen the American Nightmare documentary
I actually haven't. No,
from
and
IFC?
is that an IFC release? Okay.
Yeah, this came out like 2001, I think.
Uh huh.
2001, 2002. This was the thing that made me open because I already liked horror as a kid. But when I saw this documentary, like I said, 2001 or so on IFC, it covered like all those films from the 70s and the 60s, Night of the Living Dead, Last House on the Left, Texas Chainsaw, Dawn of the Dead. But it like told it in that from the aspect of like these are these films, but this is what they were trying to say. They were reflecting society at the
Well, I've
time,
got
what was
it.
going on.
Right. I would love to check
You
that
got
out. Actually, now that you put that on my radar,
you got to check it out.
got to
It's
message me that title again when we. I'm sure it's gonna be out the window by the end of this.
I'll definitely because it's one of my
Yeah, do that.
favorite
I'm
documentaries
curious.
ever. Like
And
that's what
IFC
inspired
distributed
me.
or?
Yeah,
Oh, okay. Well, that's great. Yeah, no, please do send that to me.
yeah, man.
But yeah, I mean, not to be, I'm preaching to the choir, obviously here, but like Night
That's
was
what we
just
do
like,
here.
yeah, I know. Oh, I know.
That's what I do
the
here.
Funny story, dude, is I found you. It had to been like 2 years ago, and I'm just, I'm this Romero nerd just on YouTube to see who, and you were reviewing Tales from the Dark Side episodes. That's when I
Oh,
first
wow.
started watching.
So you
this,
were the
like,
one
2 years
watching
ago.
that.
And then you stopped doing it, and I was like, no, don't stop doing it. I loved it when because I actually was cracking up at some of them. You were kind of really, you were mildly bashing them, and which is totally valid because some of them are great, and some of them are like, what is going on
Yeah.
here? But that's part of the charm of them, right? I mean, anyway, I grew up in that show as well, and never realized, I think, until the later '90s that it was George. Really, I never put that together. It wasn't on my radar. But
Yeah.
Night of the Living Dead just changed everything. Sorry, you want to say something?
No, I was just gonna say, yeah, there were a couple of Tales from the Dark Side, and I'm thinking about going back because I really need to go back and pick that up and do it again. But it just got to a point where it was like
Oh,
I was enjoying the show, but I hated like doing the show on here where I would watch it and have to like review it. Like it just felt like work,
Oh.
and I've always
it
been
would
of the
be
mind
work.
that
If you have
anything that's like becomes work on my YouTube channel is just like I don't want to do that.
no.
That's just
You
gross.
got to keep it fun, man. No.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
that's
just-
4 seasons for sure. So sprinkle them, one or two.
Yeah.
every
I need to
year.
go back and pick back up on that show. But yeah, Night was definitely the one that when I first saw it. First of all, I didn't like it the first time I saw it because
Oh, wow.
I'd seen the remake first. Like that was my introduction to zombies in general.
I've
when I
heard
was
you say
younger.
that before. Actually, this is gonna be weird because I have listened to you, like I said, for a
I know
while.
that's the shitty thing. Like when I meet somebody new that like is aware of me because of my channel, it's like I try to tell a story or something like, oh yeah, I heard that. Yeah,
As
you
soon
already
as I
said that. I'm
arrived
just
in
like, all right.
June, Josh and I were there, and as soon as I arrived in June, I saw you, and I was like, "Hey, I just want to shake your hand. I love your channel." And you're like, "Yeah." It's so cool to be hanging with you on here and talking with you, but yeah,
Yeah, man. Like that
um,
was like because I was gonna say like that was your first Living Dead weekend. That was the first time I'd ever seen you there. But I noticed you all weekend. Like yeah, we met briefly and shook hands and all that. But I didn't know you or anything.
oh no.
But like I
Well, I
kept
was also shooting, and like
yes,
that's
I
why
kept
this time I decided not to bring the camera. I wanted to be present and chat with everybody, and I'm glad I did that because I'll bring it next time for sure with the Big Dawn show. Don't worry.
keep the
Don't
camera
worry.
coming, man. We need that.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I kept noticing you all weekend long. You kept bringing that camera around everywhere. I was like, what is that dude up to? Like, what is he doing? Like, I'm curious. And then I
It's
see the
scary.
final product months later, and I was like, oh wow, okay, I see what he was doing. Thank God. for
Well,
that.
yeah, and a lot of people are like, think I worked for the vent. I was like, no, I'm just having fun. No, I like I said, do this all the time, but yeah, it took me a minute. I'm like, my job is insanely demand. I work as an editor. That's what I do full time. My independent work is, developing, shooting projects, take him to trying to get distribution for things and all the rest of it. I recently have had some success with a new one that I'm working on right now, but it takes a very long time to get these things underway. At least most of the work that I do is sort of like in the investigative field.
Yeah.
But I'm also working on some narrative stuff, as most indie filmmakers are. But anyway,
yeah, you always kind of want to. Which I mean, you can still tell a story in documentary filmmaking. There's definitely a story to tell there in a different way. But everybody wants to, action. Everybody wants to say action. Like let's play pretend.
Yeah, I mean, I actually love the challenge of making a cinematic documentary, right? Like, and you could see from the piece you screened earlier, it's like I actually use layers of film grain. Of course, I shot it all digitally and with a cinema camera. The Blackmagic Pixis 6K, if anybody out there is familiar.
I was wondering
anyway.
what you shot that on because
I had just bought
beautiful.
the camera like I don't know, a couple months. Hadn't shot a whole bunch with it. I've owned numerous cameras here, but took that one so that was its first like time out on the block anyway. So I was It was great, but yeah, I used a ton of film grain scans that I overlaid, and just tried to give it that filmic,
Oh yeah, yeah. It definitely. And I was going to bring that
70s
up too. The
vibe.
aspect ratios change depending on what film you're. I noticed when you go from like Night to the Crazies, it was like, oh, the aspect
Well,
ratio. It feels like
night
I'm watching the Crazies now.
technically night should have been 4:3, but I just couldn't. It looked so great in the wide in the the scope shot, so I was like, we'll leave it. We'll go wide for this one, but. For this
It looked good.
Crazies, I didn't do nearly enough. Like we honestly, all that was done on the fly. We of course, like everybody, we went to the cemetery, which I had been there as well as a kid, and so it had been 26 years since I had been back to any of these places. So I just brought the camera. We went to Evans City in the cemetery. I just didn't get, we were on our way back that day, and on the way back we went to the bridge from Tales from the Dark Side as well. But I was going to hold out and go shoot Braddock and go get some other stuff to try to fill that piece out a little bit more. But then I was like, let's just put it out.
I was hoping for some Braddock, but
yes, well, that's going to happen. Don't worry, that's going to happen.
I hope so. You should definitely. My friend Michelle just was hanging out with Tony Booba. You should connect with Tony Booba and have him take you around Braddock. He would probably love what the fuck you're doing.
Well, I've got his disc here, his short film collection that Kino that put it out, right? That was amazing. But I got to chat with him in June. He stopped by and was up there from afar, and I was right in front of the museum. I was chatting with him for a few minutes, not too long. But yeah, no, he definitely, obviously his documentary background,
Oh yeah. I love Tony Booba. Like everybody knows, like it's a running joke at this point. Where anytime I think Larry's like, Margaret always tells me, take a drink anytime Mike says Tony Booba or Braddock or Lightning over Braddock or anything like that.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, he would be he'd be so down for that. And I think I don't want to.
Sure, he'll be there in June.
He'll be there in June. We'll just say that, but. But yeah, definitely. I was going to ask you if there were any locations that you haven't been to in the Pittsburgh area yet.
Yes, definitely. I mean, there's more of the deep cuts places that I'm just listing. I know you and Larry went out to location from the dark half for the release, which I have here, which is awesome. I'm trying to think of other
battled
places.
the blizzard to get that made.
Yeah, I heard you guys talk about that.
Oh man, it was
awesome.
Terrifying.
Yeah.
Driving, like Larry's a good driver, but riding with Larry in the middle of a snowstorm and in the back roads of Western Pennsylvania was an asshole tightening experience. So I'll just say
my
that.
God, I bet, man. I've been in some the scariest driving incidents I've had have been in Colorado during blizzards on roads with no guardrails, and you're just a sharp cliff. I mean, like you're driving into The Shining opening type of situation at night. Yeah.
You're like Scatman Crothers driving through the snow trying to get to the thing.
Totally, man. Totally. Axe to the chest fully.
Real quick, let me get to the chat real quick. I got a super chat. So, we gotta rob the bank.
Oh,
gotta rob the bank to start out.
I know
here.
it's
You never know.
Money, money, money. Right.
You never know.
stellar. Amazing. That's, by the way, this is a good time to I met you here with there you go. Yeah. I know it's over there somewhere.
Yeah. Let's do it. Let's crack one open for you, Jeff.
Cheers.
Jeff, down
Cheers.
is up.
Thank
Cheers,
you.
my man.
Thank you, Jeff.
Says, hey,
Yeah.
Michael, Eric, I hope you guys are well. Eric, I dug your Monroeville tour on YouTube. Yes, we're gonna play that here a little later and talk about that as well, because that was so fucking cool to see. Like from 1999, the mall, and so little had changed. I was so jealous looking at it. I was like, God, I just want to be there. But yeah, well, I definitely want to ask you about that here shortly. But
happy to talk about it. I'm so glad that I saved those tapes, but it was a job to find them. So I literally got that
I was
done.
telling you, I have
So-
shit like that too on like old VHS-C tapes that I recorded back in the day that I don't know where they're at. And if I ever find them, I'll put them on the channel. But they're storage unit or in a garage or in my parents' house or somewhere. But one of these days I'll track them down. But Jeff had a
Yeah.
question for you. He says, when was the first time you saw Dawn?
So I want to say the first cut I saw of Dawn was the Cannes cut.
Mm-hmm.
And forever I thought that was, first of all, I was very young. I do not remember I probably was 12 or 13. I was probably 12. So it would have been just a couple of years before I shot all that footage, because I just went bananas when I saw the film. Of course, I saw, as I mentioned, Night found the tape in the attic. It was just, my dad had it up there, and it was like the shittiest copy you can possibly imagine. But I have fond memories of that because it was just, the print was garbage, but it was perfect, the way it looked. It was just like the tone, the degraded tone of it just added so much to the experience of seeing it. And
I kind of miss that about old like VHSs. Sometimes I'll pop one in and it looks like shit, but I'm like, but it just, something about it just feels right,
Yeah.
like.
Yeah. So I don't want to bury the question, but yes, no, with Dawn, very soon afterwards, I would have, I don't exactly remember what age I was when I saw Night, but it was around probably within a year I saw Dawn. And I got, I bought it's actually playing on this TV, which I bought from the mall, by the way, at Kevin's toy store downstairs.
The TV?
Yeah, that TV up there.
Awesome.
The last time I was there, I used to have an old one. I was like, no, we got to put another one up there. Anyway, so that same, the double, the Elite Entertainment double pack, purple font. Yeah, so that was the first copy I saw. And I had, I was probably 12. So maybe a little earlier, but around that age. But yeah, that film just flipped me out. And, from that point, the thing is, what's hilarious about this is with Day. So it was, the first time I saw Day was the same day, the first day I met George, actually. When I say met him at a convention, got to shake his hand or whatever. But it was in New York City. My dad by the way, I should mention, my dad is to blame for all this. So thank you. But he
I was gonna ask you
nurtured all of this, and you got to wonder who's letting their 12-year-old watch Dawn of the Dead or whatever. But if he hadn't done that,
I let my 4-year-old watch it.
Oh yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, it's like George said, right? It's a comic book. Like, I don't know. I mean, yes, it's very violent and everything, but to me, it doesn't. It's not someone. There you go. There it is. Well done. I was just thinking, man, I wish I had that. So I sent.
There it is.
I sent Michael this picture before the show, like yesterday. So that, and by the way, this is hilarious because you can just see the admiration in my eyes here.
I know. It looks like you're about to jump over the table and just grab
it's
hold,
kind of
and
disturbing, to be honest. Look at it. It's sort of kind of creepy, but I was just like, my dad. First of all, you weren't supposed to be taking photos, but my dad was like, "F it, we're gonna take this picture." So
yeah,
anyway,
George wouldn't have said anything anyway. He would.
No, I love that photo though because he's. It's like it's before his like vest era.
Yeah.
Kind of looks a little bit. Yeah, it's the '90s, George, right? So
and what year was this? Did you
97?
97.
So I went. So my dad drove me to the Fangoria Weekend of Horrors. We knew George Romero and Tom Savini and God, who else was there? Angus Scrim from Phantasm, and like all these people were going to be there. But I was there to see George. That was and it was a convention, Ladies of the Living Dead. It was Judy O'Day and Galen Ross, and Lori Cardia was supposed to be there. She actually ended up not. She got sick and wasn't there, so it was just the Galen and Judith O'Day. So I have other pictures with them from that same show, but that's a copy of the Night of the Living Dead film book, Russo's book, which I still have somewhere around here. I actually, finally in June, I had Judy Ridley, she was the last one that I had met. But in that book, I've got, in person had Carl Harbin and Marilyn Eastman sign it. George,
I never met Carl or
Hyman.
Marilyn.
Well, that same tape from the, I know we haven't shown it yet, but the 99 footage I had, there's shots of Carl like signing my laser disc and Marilyn Eastman as well. So it's pretty awesome. But that picture, I need to frame that because it's like, it's hilarious. But
I kind of want to frame it and just put it on my wall just because I just loved
your
it.
face over there.
It's like when I met George, I was already like, 19, 18, something like that. And here you are, it's like, just this kid, just like, yeah, sign my book, sign my book. I'm like,
Well,
oh, I hope Everly is like that at that age, which she
I
may be.
remember.
She runs into fucking Brad Dourif or something like that. She's obsessed with Chucky, like that's her hero in life. So
I've heard you say that before, actually, on here. So that's awesome. Yeah, you gotta let that roll while it's going on. So but yeah, that show was the first time I saw Day as well, and it was in a screening. And the hilarious story of this is my dad was just mortified because it was just the language and the gore was so over the top. He's like, no, we're gonna skip out on this one, and I was like infuriated. So I had to leave early. So it wasn't until I got back that I ended up buying the VHS without his knowledge and went and watched it myself. So I was sneaking Day of the Dead because by then I was super hooked. But I sort of love the first three films equally, even though I don't think they're as objectively as films. I think Night and Dawn are near perfect horror films, and Day I think has, who am I to judge? I think it has some issues, but I love the issues it does have. I would never change a thing about it. I love it.
right.
But
Did you like it the first time you saw it?
I did, to be honest.
I was one of those that, like, first time I saw it, like, I couldn't get through it. I was just like, man, these people are just talking.
A lot
and
of
I think
people said that. Yeah.
it's like they start so high in the city. They're coming. They're popping up everywhere, and you're like, oh my god, this is gonna be because I had seen Dawn and Night and stuff beforehand. So Day, I was just thinking like, oh geez, what is this? A sequel to Dawn of the Dead. This is gonna be amazing. And then it's like, nope, back underground, and we're all just gonna scream and yell at each other for 90 minutes.
Well,
and I was like,
it's like a theatrical, it's like a stage play in a way. You ever think about that? It plays the way it rolls out. And of course, I wasn't thinking of this as a kid. I was just enamored with the story. I remember loving how dark it was in terms of its tone.
I love the gore, like the effects and
yeah.
stuff are obvious. Like I would just when I rented it, I got bored with it, so I would just fast forward to like the kills and stuff. Yeah, I was young. I was just like trying to find gore. I didn't understand what the movie was actually about at that point. Like over the years, like you start to connect more and more dots every time you see that movie.
I used to think that it was more subtle in its sort of commentary, but at the same time, I think that's kind of bullshit because it's actually in your face in terms of, you think about this being like the Reagan era and the militarism and all of that, which of course, anyone who's aware of George's politics, is definitely quite left leaning, which I was always interested in what he had to say on that front, or he at least tried to craft his films with something to say, not even just politically, but just commentary on society and how we end up destroying and devouring ourselves.
Yeah,
the living dead, are just a factor of our own making in a way, and I always enjoyed that about the first three films. I think it went a little bit over the line with Land, and that's another story. But
yeah, George just kind of went way left and was just like, just put it right in your face. But yeah, like the first three are like, to me, like we talked about this last week when we did the Fulci zombie commentary. We talked about how George kind of almost had more love and affinity for the zombies than he did the actual human characters. Like to me, like George was always saying like, the zombies are actually right. Like they're just living on instinct. They're not, there's no politics, there's no infighting, there's no bullshit. They're not killing out of passion. It's just their instinct because they're just doing what they do, but the world would almost be a better place if they did just take over everything. And we were just, the society, the whole overtaking of society and stuff,
Right.
So yeah, it's definitely like Day is definitely darker, and like I said, it took years for me to kind of wrap my head around what he was trying to say with that. It is more subtle than I think Dawn and Night for sure, but at the same time, it's like you said, it's a different era, different things were going on at the time. George's headspace was different.
And then, as of course we all know, I think there's such a and of course, I'm just coming at it from a person who dabbles in independent filmmaking myself. But I part of as I mentioned at the top, like, part of the reason that I gravitated towards George's work, especially the majority of his career, his independence, his determination, and ability to bring together such a skilled group of, in the beginning, it was just friends who came together. Of course, they were working professionals in the commercial field, but and also that's a little bit of my background as well. I mean, I started in, believe it or not, in like television news, and then made my way out to LA, and because that was where the work is, and I knew people out there, and went out there, and my post-production sort of field happened. But anyway, a whole lot of things happened out there. But main thing is that I never really wanted to go that direction with my career as far as going out to Los Angeles and all that, because part of the reason I actually came back to the West Coast, my wife and I moved back in 24, specifically for a reason of just wanting to sort of pursue independent projects away from that bubble. Which, by the way, anybody who works in the film industry now knows that, everything's Los Angeles, Hollywood's kind of dead. It's all falling apart out there. Not to be, I really shouldn't say that, but a lot of things
saying
are not.
that today. We were looking at what was in the theaters, like what's playing, and it was just like everything just looked. I was just like, it's over. Like it's there's hardly anything left.
I hate to say it's all falling apart. I mean, there's definitely a lot still made, and there's still plenty of things being funded, but less so. The struggles are real, and the struggles of making films, no matter what era, they're all sort of unified and connected in that way. And I to me, like, the real film school was, getting the gear and going out and making a film. And that's how you learn. You fall flat on your face and you make something terrible, but this is how you learn, and this is how you interact with people, and how you build a team. And there's so many things. And I think George's work, for me anyway, beyond even the content of his Living Dead films and his other works, which we haven't even talked about yet, but I absolutely, I'm a huge Martin fan, by the way. So that's another film that I just adore, just because it was made on, what was the budget? $70,000, something like that.
Yeah,
I
70,
believe
80, something like that. Yeah,
something like that. So,
Yeah.
The fact that they, I'm sure people weren't paid all that much to do it. So they just brought people together, and that he had the support from, Rubenstein as well, and Gornick. He had those collaborators that all fulfilled that role. And I don't know, that's always something that I've, strive to find those people that want to do it.
That was always my dream. Like I mentioned, like I wanted to be a filmmaker when I was younger, but I had no interest in ever going to Hollywood. Like I was just following George's, teachings. I was like, I have no interest in going to Hollywood. I don't want to do it that way, or like I just want to find a core group of people that I can trust and just go make little shit. Like that's all I want to do. Like, but unfortunately, there's no, there's no job that will pay you to do that. So at some point, I had to be like, I got to pick something. I got to find something to do. But yeah, that was always the thing that attracted me to George too. Was just the idea of like getting a group of friends together. Like he would always put it that way. It's like, when he made Night, it was like we 10 of us got together, threw in $600 a piece, and made Night. And I was just like,
the dream, man. That was the dream.
I was like, well, I could do that. Yeah.
I was a 13-year-old kid thinking, like, reading, Russo's book, the film book, about how they're in the Sam Marini's diner or whatever. And I know all these stories backwards and forwards, and how they all decided right there. And, it's just, you're emulating and like imagining how this could all happen. And I don't know, not to be too hippy dippy with it, but like the way, if you focus your mind in on, what you want, if you can picture those things, a lot of times you can really attract those situations, which actually has happened. I mean, I've had success and I've had failure in my career, and I think you learn a lot from both. So it's been, it's I don't know, because George's work to me spoke to me in the way of, of course, George had a lot of immediate success. I mean, my God, he made some of the most pivotal horror cinema that, that the world's ever seen, that have, affected so many people. He also is, had a huge swath of time where nothing happened form. And I always got really curious about what that was and what happened. And
Oh yeah, me
you know,
too.
now seeing where the film industry is going and how difficult it's easier than ever to make a film. It's very difficult to achieve. You know, it depends on what if you can distribute yourself, sure, but getting especially in my field of documentaries, you know, indie doc distribution is the market for that is extremely difficult right now. The landscape still possible, but you kind of have to develop under, you know, within the streamer platform. You have to go under the umbrella, making stuff outside of it and bringing them. My first feature doc, we made it totally independently. It was independently financed, and we sold it out of festivals, and that world is just kind of gone right now. Not that it won't ever come back, but it's very it's a challenging landscape, to say the least. But anyway, I just learned a whole lot from, you know, listening to George's experiences and how he was always so committed to the independence, you know, his team in Pittsburgh. I think he was always sort of searching for that too.
Oh yeah, that's why he went back. That's why he went up to Canada. Like when
Well,
he,
yeah,
when he went
totally.
to Canada and found that group when he was doing Land or Bruiser. Really, I mean, a lot of those
Bruiser
people he
was
first
probably
met
what-
on Bruiser
Yeah.
was like that's what he wanted. He didn't want to fuck with Hollywood anymore. He found that core group of people up in Canada, and you know, and the rest is history. So yeah, George was never one to, which is you know, we were talking about visiting the archives, and I was looking through a lot of the stuff that he, you know, either was reached out to work on or reached out to the studios, and you could tell by the late 90s he was just trying to get any fucking thing made. Like he was just like, I'll do anything at this point. And I think at some point in his brain, once he got Bruiser and got the ball rolling on that, and you know, got that made, well, you know, it wasn't that successful, but you know, could go back and do Land in Toronto after that. It was just like he found his niche again, where he could go and make his low budget movies, whatever he wanted to make. I mean, Diary, Survival, whatever you think of those movies, it's like they were still what he wanted to make. You know.
Well, he was certainly pigeonholed in, you know, a genre that he set the ground rules for.
Oh, yeah.
And at the same time, it was sad that he was such a
But I feel like he kind of
I wanted to see
figured
another
out a
Night
way.
Riders, you know.
Yo, yeah, definitely. And he would have loved to have made something outside of a zombie movie, but he kind of figured out like, well, they're not going to let me make anything that's not a zombie movie, so I'll just make whatever movie I want to make, but like I'll have to throw zombies in it. Like Survival of the Dead is George doing his Western. Like that's just George always wanted to do a Western. The only way he's going to get a Western made is if he threw zombies in it. So he's like, all right, well, this will be my Western. It'll be about zombies, I guess. So I mean, he kind of figured out how to make that work for him after the fact, but yeah, it's
and you have to wonder, right?
When zombies weren't as popular anymore, that's when he kind of got because by the time The Walking Dead came out, they had already been kind of beat to death at that point. So you know,
I mean, it has been beat to death. I'm always, you know, I'm sure a lot of people that work and write screenplays and things, you're always wondering how can, you know, we reinvent this idea? How can you make it scary again, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, it is interesting to muse on like sort of how his career, how he got pigeonholed at the end of his career with zombie films, and that, you know, at the same time, you know, and it's hard when you're in it, I'm sure, and what do I know? It's just my assumption based on what I know about George's career, and then, you know, his sort of how things plateaued in the 90s. I know he was doing a lot of things, but he just wasn't getting the financing, or, you know, the deals would always fall through. But the fact that he had
made more money in the 90s than he did his entire career. Like,
yeah, I mean,
but he got nothing made, so it was
body
unfulfilling.
Work that preceded it, and in a way, it's like, you know, I don't know. It things get complicated when you do, you know, when you start doing so many projects, and, you know, you're waiting for the budgets get larger and all the rest of it, and it's a long waiting game. Trust me, I can tell you. Not that I've done anywhere near as many films as George ever did, but, you know, it's at least not yet. I'm trying, but it's it's crazy. It's crazy to think. Anyway, it's inspiring to sort of look at, you know, the trial and tribulations, I guess, of just filmmaker's career, and
stick to your guns, and, you know, just fight through it, fight for your vision.
Right.
Stegio says, I worked in Hollywood in the 80s, early 90s. Wouldn't want to go back. Seems like the energy and passion has gone elsewhere. I agree with that. Like, I was even, so I'm a big fan of old school game shows. I love game shows from the 70s and 80s. I can sit for hours and just watch like Match Game 75 or the old Family
Old
Feud with Richard
school
Dawson.
Price is
Yeah,
Right.
and it's just like that. It's just got that old school Hollywood feel to it. Like all the celebrities on there are just like smoking, and they're all have one-liners. They're all quick. It's just a different world than what Hollywood is now.
Yeah.
So, and I
Well,
was saying
it's
this last night on the Revival House podcast. I was in the chat for that, and I mentioned I was like, there's just something about Hollywood back then. It just seemed like people were more human back then than they are now. Like everybody's just like, it's like we're robots at this point. Like everybody acts the same, everybody says the same shit, and it's just like, I don't know.
there's
But
a lot of reasons for that, and
well,
we
yeah,
can branch out into it. Just it for me, I don't know, working in, and by the way, I as an editor, like, get to see a whole lot of content in terms of, what I work on, and what I see the inner workings of. I can't really specifically talk about what or who, but just seeing how streamlined everything is in terms of the perfection, everything's perfected, and I'm also not I'm not putting it down, to each their own. For me personally, I loved, and a part of it, and again, to take it back to George, part of what attracts me to especially the first half of his career is just the independence, yes, but the grittiness of, you can see how it was made. You can, it isn't perfected lighting. Not that it's bad lighting, I don't want to say it that way, but I just, Dawn is a good example. It's a very regional looking horror film, which in a way I think is beautiful.
yeah,
That if you got to wonder, if George made that film today, he would probably be emulating a lot of what is done today. I mean, I don't know, but I think the film and his films are product of the era they were made in, which benefits them. It's like a beautiful accident in a way. Of course, it's not all an accident. He was incredibly talented, but I think there's so many things that all these different people brought to the table. And, but yeah, today it's there's so many good films being made,
it
both
feels
foreign
very
and
by
independent.
the numbers today.
Yes.
Just when I watch even stuff that's good, stuff that I like, it still just feels like paint by numbers. It's like, oh, well, this is the way you do this. This is the lighting that you have to have here. Like every horror movie has to have that color grading, the same color grading. Everything has to look this way. If it's a happy scene outside, it's got to be color graded this way. Where it's like if you watch something like Last House on the Left and everything just looks like complete shit, and it's like you can see that it looks like shit, and you can tell it was made for 30 cents, but at the same time it's so effective because it almost keeps you on your toes, because it doesn't have that vibe. It's like if you watch a horror movie now, as soon as you push play, I know this is a horror movie because of the tone, the score,
the jump scares that are predictable, the
like
sound, the over sound design. And by the way, I love sound design, as you could probably tell in the piece that I speed ramps and stuff. But at the same time, I mean, sound designing is so much fun. I spend hours of my week sound designing pieces all the time, like just on the regular.
I never respected sound design until years later. Like when I was younger and making movies with my cousins and stuff, like that was like the last thing in my brain. Like I was always more focused on like the visual editing aspect of it and all that, and the music, and make sure like music cues hit where I want them to hit and stuff like that. But like actually like just throwing in like some birds in the background, or some chirping birds, some ambient sounds, like it adds so much. I didn't realize it until I did it years later, and I was like, wow, this actually like upgrades everything like tenfold.
Well,
just a little bit of this. Yeah.
You bring in people, and you shouldn't think about it, but there's especially with like what they call Foley effects. I remember on my first feature, like getting that back. I actually didn't do that. Whatever I did in the offline, and I don't even remember now, but I got it back, the first pass at sound design, even just paper. And I was like, oh my God, it blew my mind. like, this is incredible. So ever since
there was
then,
always the story, and they always talk about the crickets in Night of the Living Dead and how they're
yeah.
so loud, but you don't
Oh,
notice it when you're watching the movie. Like you're not, but like subconsciously it is in there. So now anytime that I hear crickets, like if I'm outside, like I immediately think of Night of the Living Dead.
oh yeah.
It's like
Well,
little
I
things
think
like
that
that.
was also a happy accident too, because didn't they talk about that the crickets were just really actually there? So,
Yeah, yeah, it was
you
like
know what's really
I think they covered that in
funny?
like Autopsy of the Dead. I don't know if you've seen that or not, but they
I
actually there's like a whole segment
I have.
devoted to the crickets.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, I don't have that disc though, but I don't remember where I've seen it, but I have seen it. But I loved how insanely deep a dive that was.
Oh
I
yeah.
I I actually something I bought from Carl Hardman and Marilyn Eastman at their table was a cassette tape, and I do not know where that is. It's got to be somewhere in storage. But it was yellow cassette tape of the sound effects of Night of the Living Dead, A side
Oh,
and B side, and it
I
was
bet
all the
Bulo is chomping at the bit to get a hold of that.
okay. I have got it somewhere. I've got it
If you
somewhere.
find
And
it, I'm sure
in
John's
fact,
gonna track you down for it.
yeah, yeah. Well, message me after the show. No, I'd love to. Well, if I find it, I'll definitely let you know. But
That's pretty cool though. I didn't know that they would have
I bought
had
it.
something
I
like that.
couldn't have been very much because at that time my dad would have bought it for me or whatever. But like that same trip in '99 is when I bought that from their table, and yeah. So it was the sound, and I remember there. Even the thunder as a kid when I was making horror films of my own. And I'm like, I was one of these every other weekend. I'm like in the cemetery shooting some zombie scene or something.
Oh yeah.
And forcing, my sister and my whole family and neighbors and everybody to be in this stuff. Sometimes that went fine. Other times it didn't go great. But anyway, I even layered
Yeah,
in.
there you go. John's saying, "Oh well, you have the yellow cassette.
Uh-huh,
Find it."
there he is.
There you go.
All right, I'll dig. I know, man, that it's somewhere in storage, and I can literally see it. In fact, that tape, the VHS-C tape that I'm referencing, that I posted on the Living Dead Weekend page today, if anybody goes and takes a look at that video, it's this clip I'm talking about is not in there, but I digitized it the other day before I sent it to you. I've got footage of the tape too. I'm like holding it up, looking at it, flipping it around, and you can hear it as we're driving up to the mall. We're listening to it, so it's like, and Marilyn Eastman is narrating sound number 43, and she'll say what it is, and then it will just be like keys falling on a table. Yeah, it's crazy.
That's so cool. Yeah,
So,
you gotta find that. I gotta hear that.
All right, I will. Now that you've lit a fire under me, I'll definitely do it. So
if you don't, Vulo's gonna find you wherever you're at, and he's gonna
well,
look
I'm
for it.
surprised he hasn't been able, that it's not out there. I figured, I would actually think I looked on eBay to see, because I was like, man, where is that tape? Anyway, I'll find it. But hopefully.
Matt's saying, what's up, Matt? It says flaws and blemishes add character. One of the things that added to the patina of George's films, they weren't perfect, but they were human. I wholeheartedly agree with that.
You couldn't say that any better. Definitely.
Yeah.
Like I think that's part of, again, when I was talking about, like, you could see how they were made, right? And it just that's what, and it's still to this day, I'm 40 now. I'm still like a kid, endlessly inspired by that film, Dawn too, and Day as well. But for some reason, Night of the Living Dead shaped a lot of how I thought about how we could do, because it was attainable, I think, at that age. I could.
It's
I
always
could
like, because like I always
find
think,
people and.
because like when I was younger, like I could see how it was done, like how, okay, so you shoot this, and then you shoot this, and then you shoot this, and then if you cut them all together, it looks like it's all in sequence. It's all happening at one time, and I was like,
Totally.
oh, but I could see that in George's films for the first time ever, for some reason. Like, to me, growing up watching movies, it always seemed like this otherworldly thing that, like, how did they do this? Like, because my babysitter when I was younger used to tell me that there were people inside the TV, and if there was a big shootout or something in a Chuck Norris movie, she'd say, "Oh, there's going to be a whole lot of bodies to clean up behind the TV after this is done." And I'm in my 5-year-old mind, I'm just thinking like, "Wow, there's people." And Shining Time Station. Do you remember fucking Shining Time Station?
No.
The kids show Shining Time Station.
No.
So this is so off topic, but there's a jukebox. Well, not really. It kind of ties in. There's a jukebox in Shining Time Station, and when they would put a quarter in the jukebox, it would go inside the jukebox, and there were puppets inside the jukebox that would play the music. in the episode.
Oh.
Like every time.
I
So
think you're bringing. Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about. But
yeah, it had George Carlin was Mr.
oh
Conductor
man,
and
see, I was
Dee Dee
messed up. I was
Khan, I
watching
think.
too many horror films. I should have been watching cartoons.
I had a
or something.
weird mix of like Shining Time Station and Lamb Chop, and then I would turn that off, and I would throw in, Pale Rider, Clint Eastwood's Pale Rider, or Code of Silence, Chuck Norris Code of Silence, and I would go
That's
back and forth. I had a nice mix,
that's awesome. Yeah, that's awesome. God, I've like blacked out I mean, I know I watched a bunch of stuff like that as well, but man, it didn't land with me the same.
Yeah, I was a Barney and Friends guy back in the day.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
John's saying I was given an MP3 from a trusted source, but I don't think they want it out there. Okay.
Okay,
alright.
that I was
Let's see
about
how
to
it is
say. I was like, oh, I can make a copy. I don't know who has the copyright or whatever. So, but let me see if I can find it. But yeah, just having the physical tape would be awesome.
Yeah, because that's I don't like I on eBay quite a bit. I don't you never see those pop up for whatever
I'm
reason.
surprised, to be honest,
Yeah.
about that because I don't know how many they had there, but I know that I saw it around online, or maybe a Page of the Dead had it listed, or the forums or something back in the day. I don't remember, but I know other people had it.
I haven't seen a whole lot of them. Like, I think maybe I've seen one of them in my lifetime on pop up on eBay. But outside of that, like, yeah, that's why I was surprised that you had that, or at least hope you have that still. 10 questions. Are you ready for 10 questions? I got 10 questions for you.
Yes.
Putting you on the spot, on the hot seat. I know
Do it.
we've been
please.
talking for an hour already, but now we're really going to dig in, and I'm really going to find out everything I want to know.
Do it.
So 10 questions, ladies and gentlemen, with Eric Walter. Question number 1. Favorite Romero film?
God, it's such a hard. I have to say Night. I have to say Night of the Living Dead, and that's a very difficult because I ebb and flow on it. It's a film that I don't even need to watch it anymore. I've seen it so many times I can just hit play in my head and then it's there. Not that I won't still watch it, but I've talked about it. It's
one of those movies that's like it's one of those movies that's easy to memorize because I remember as a kid I actually have like when we were making little movies I did the opening scene in the cemetery with my sister, and I'd already had that whole scene memorized.
Right.
And I would just tell her, okay, now you say this, and I'll say this. You say this, I'll say that. But it is one of those movies that's so like the beats of it. You can close your eyes and you can literally like.
Well,
remember
like
that whole movie.
It's like we're talking about docs. It is like it's shot like a doc in a way. A lot of it,
Yeah,
not all of
yeah.
it, but there's such a looseness to it that I would love to ask George, now if that was intentional or I don't. He probably has talked about it, and he may have but certainly it was intentional how they made it, and it might have just been running fast and loose. But man, it just helps the film. It helps. It just sets it a notch above anything being done at the time. For that reason.
It's funny because the things that we love about George's early work is like, the flaws and all that. That's the stuff that George just can't stand. So anytime he never liked watching Night because if he watched it, he would say, "Oh, look at all these flaws and stuff. Look at
I'm the same way.
eye line
If you
isn't
start
right."
talking about anything I've made, it's like, oh man, it's so
I
like you're looking back at work you did years ago, and it's like there's a quote I love about each film is a bit of life lived. I think Peter Weir said that, but that is true because it's like they represent a chunk of time that they did things differently back there, So I'm sure he felt that way about Night, and I think he said something like, "You all come out for this movie every time, but not any of these," which is really funny, But so I hate to say, I don't hate it. I mean, I love the film, and I've talked about it for an hour now. But I'd have to say Night just because of its massive impact on my life, and I'm here still talking about it today. But with that being said, there are still films I love pretty much. I mean, Don Martin, I love equally as much. It's hard to and more. I
think it's one of those things like when like if you listen to an interview with like a musician or an artist that has a new album out, and they're just and you ask them like, "Oh, what's your favorite album that you've ever made?" They always say, "Oh, the new one. This new one's the best thing I ever did." They all say that to a T. because to them it is their best thing they ever made because they feel like they've progressively gotten better. They've learned more, they've honed their craft, and now they've made the best thing they've ever made. But to fans, it's like, okay, Metallica, like your newest album isn't your best album. Like, Ride the Lightning is your best album. But to them, it's just like, but it's, it's all the flaws and shit. That's all they can hear.
Did George ever say what? I knew Martin was his favorite, but what about what he thought his best work was? Did he ever say that?
That's a good question.
Because there's a difference between your favorite and the best, right?
Well,
my favorite is Night, but it's not his best film.
Well, we'll get there. Don't.
Okay. All right. I'm skipping ahead. All right.
But yeah, I do remember. I remember hearing him in some interviews when Survival came out. He would say like Survival was his best film, kind of in the same vein that we're talking about now. But again, it's like,
right.
It's new. It's and you can all the technical aspects of it. Were probably up to par with whatever he was hoping for.
Sure.
But yeah, I don't think he's ever like. I don't know if he's ever just come out and said this was my best work. I don't know if I've ever heard him say that.
I know, neither have I.
Yeah,
and those
I don't
things
know.
stay with me, so I would have. I would be interested if I come across that at some point. But all right, I'm derailing all your 10 questions.
That's okay.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Okay.
So we know that Night of the Living Dead is your favorite Romero film. What is your least favorite Romero film?
That's tough, man. The least.
Which one are you just like? Take it
I'd have to say Diary. I'm sorry, Diary is probably my least.
What about Diary? Just as a documentary, documentarian filmmaker, you're just like, this is stupid. Because I know a guy that like I've heard from people that went to film school. And they're like, well, Diary of the Dead's stupid because that's not how film school works. You don't just do this, So that's what throws them off. So it's like the personal experience that they've had with the content of the film is what turns them off to it. So what is it about Diary that makes it your least favorite?
I will, to be fair, it's been many years since I've seen it. And I want to I own it. I should revisit it because I kind of want to go through everything again. But I would say that I've seen it twice, only twice for a Romero film is actually not very many times for me. But I think, and this might have had a lot to do with my sort of what I thought it was going to be, which is a problem, I'll admit. But I wanted it. I felt like if he had made a film, like we were watching a documentary that had been made about the end of the world, the Living Dead apocalypse, right? That would have been the fact that it was a sort of pseudo found footage. And I'm always wondering, like, why are people still filming when this is all happening? I just can't. I'm not a big. I can't get on board with it, and also felt a little distant in terms of its. I know a lot of people would disagree with me because I have issues with land and survival. At the same time, I find even land more watchable than I would.
I agree with that.
With Diary, but it's a tough question. I haven't ever been asked that before, and I hate to throw any of George's work under the bus. And I'm not, I know it's so easy to pick on the last couple of films that he was made, but because I've really tried to give him I need to revisit them now as more, as in a full
Land more so than maybe the other two. I think suffers from higher expectations that I think the audience had for it when it came out originally, and I think that's kind of because I think if that movie came out and it wasn't George Romero, it was Robert Rodriguez's Land of the Dead or something like that, I feel like people would love it a whole lot more than they do. But when it's George and it's the guy who made Night of the Living Dead, it's the guy who made Dawn of the Dead, it's the guy who made Day of the Dead, the next one, you better live up to that title. And it's just, it was 20 years after Day, and George was just a different filmmaker at that point. It was borderline. It was like a studio movie. It had stars in it. It was something so, like when I saw it, I was like, I tried so hard to like it. I went to the theater and saw it 3 times, just trying to convince myself, like, oh, I did this.
I think you and I were doing the same thing because I probably saw it 5 times, and I'm pretty sure my cousins were there with me the first time. I took like people to see it. Like maybe I'll like it better, or I'm like I want to love it, because
Yeah.
like you said, it was it's the sequel to Day of the Dead. Like this is continuing the story, but I agree with you. I think George sort of was living in the shadow of Dawn's mammoth success ever since that. And man, that's such a hard place to be. I mean, it's amazing because you've created these like just hugely consequential works of cinema at the same time. You're never, Hitchcock went through the same thing. He made Psycho, and he was never able to really reach that mountaintop. I mean, I still think there's plenty of films that Hitchcock made after that are beautiful and on their own merit. But I try not to, and I know I just did by saying Diary is like me what I wanted it to be, which is not fair. So this is my own sort of just pure reaction to the movie. When I saw Land of the Dead. Like Land, I knew it wasn't great. I loved what it was trying to do. I thought it went way too far with the smart zombie concept. Although I remember asking Greg Nicotero at a show, this must have been in 2004. It might have been like Horrifying Weekend or something. It was one of those that I was at, and George was there, I believe. I want to say, can't remember. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Greg Nicotero was there, and I came up to him. I said, "Is this going to be his Land of the Dead? Is it going to be his original script for Day? Is it going to have a lot of those elements in there?" And I think he said, "Yeah." He said something. Well, I can't really say, but yeah, I think it's going to be something like that. And it kind of did. It did have some of those things, but. Man, I would have loved to have seen. I love the film Day of the Dead that we got. At the same time, if he was going to do that, I would have loved to have seen 80s version of that rather than the 2005. Okay,
we'll get there.
All right,
we'll get there.
I'm skipping all over everything. Yeah.
You're covering the questions before I could tell them.
I know.
All right. So we'll get back to this one. We'll round back around. What do you think is Romero's best film?
Okay, we did see like I should be prepping this. Oh.
What do you think is his?
Josh and
pound
I
for pound
this
best
conversation. Film. I have to say and this is because he's had just so many brilliant works. His most effective, the best film that I could read, I'd say Dawn probably is his best. The pinnacle, and I'm not even talking about technically anything. I'm just talking about as a piece of filmmaking that is the most entertaining, thoughtful, horrifying and fun, and also with obviously the commentary woven into it was brilliant. I don't know. I don't think Dawn can be topped.
And maybe it's because I'm just a die-hard Dawn of the Dead fan, have been my whole life. Love that movie, and I think about it all the time. Like I just dissect it and I dissect it and I dissect it. And I feel like there's an element to that movie, there's a magic to that movie that I don't think George intended there to be. Because I feel like if you bring some of these theories and some of the stuff up to George, he would just say, I don't know what you're talking about, man. I didn't want to do that. But like, just thinking like even the scene in the basement, just subtle little things that don't seem like a big deal.
Right.
Turn out it's saying so much more in that movie. Like in the scene in the basement at the Tenet, when the priest comes out and he has the line,
it's one of the best scenes of the whole film, to be honest.
Yeah. And it's spooky, it's eerie, and the priest is great. But the line where he's like, "We must stop the killing or lose the war."
Right.
Immediately after that, Roger and Peter go down in the basement and start execution style killing all these zombies. Now this is 70, 77, 78, so this is still, zombies are new.
Right.
George is doing this with the intentions in mind that the zombies are still somewhat human. There's still a human aspect to death, and there's still respect in dying, that type of thing. And they have to kill whatever humanity's left inside of them. They have to get over the fact that they have to kill to survive. But in doing that, we're destroying our own humanity. And that's what's going to be our ultimate downfall, is what that priest was saying. It's like we have to keep our humanity, or we're no better than the zombies. And if that happens, all bets are off. I don't know. I was thinking about that the other day, and I was like, man, I don't know if George meant to do that or not, but it makes total sense the way that the rest of that movie plays out. You know, it just
That's beautifully said. I mean,
those
you're
characters do
110%
kill
correct.
their own humanity at some point, even when they get to the mall, and then it's like, what are we doing? Like they go on the hunt, you know, and they kill all the zombies in the mall, and they stand there at the balcony, and they all it's not a yay we won, or you know, it's not a joy. It's like this like just really emotional moment where they're sitting there like thinking like, you know, what have we done? Like who are we? Fran, what have we done to ourselves? Like
No.
it's like
Right.
there's so many layers to that fucking movie that I can just think
There's
about it and just
so
be
many
like, wow.
layers. And another thing that I just and that was obviously intentional for this note, but just the fact that something I even as a kid that I just respected and loved is that all the zombies disappear in the you know midway through the movie, and it just becomes them being corrupted by the mall and the you know the consumerism
Yeah.
commentary and all that. But and it just I actually I prefer the theatrical cut in terms of its editing and its music. At the same time, there are a lot of sequences that I really miss from the Cannes cut, that the extended shows with you know a little
I
bit more that I
fully
actually
agree.
love that stuff. I get why he had to cut it, probably, I'm sure, but man, that stuff it adds a lot to it for me. And I don't know, just the dynamics of the characters and how they're becoming corrupted, how they're letting the mall's influence change who they are. And then there's a you know once they finally, yeah, what have we done to ourselves? And Peter throws the fork down, and then they cut to you know Steven is loading. He's back in his jacket, and it feels like, oh, these are
Yeah.
the characters that were at the beginning of the movie. And there's like a feeling there that's
Or
like,
when, you know, when Peter's like taking off the rings and he throws them down and zips up his jacket and he's like, all right,
right. It's like
I
we're
gotta get
getting
back to
back to what
business,
those
you know.
characters that I really admired in the
Whereas
beginning.
before, you know,
Yeah,
they're
they
hanging out in
become
sweaters and, you know, gambling
sure
with money that's for fucking what, you
for
know, it's
what.
like,
Yeah, I
you know,
know.
and it's
But
just
it's
like,
just, but those are the intentional, obviously, because they shot it that way, and it's just so brilliant. But man, and again, this is another. I hate to keep going back to the same thing I'm saying, but another illustration of how like everything you plan on, and then there's and certainly Night of the Living Dead is a commentary on like what you don't plan on and how it just the time period it was made in, you know, Vietnam era, also, you know, all the political assassinations that happened. The country was an upheaval when that film came out, as well as just the grittiness, the gore, the everything that was put into that film that just um, they didn't plan on certainly the reaction to it, but they didn't plan the way it was shot and the way that it just gelled together. And what people, you know, critics, of course, see a lot of things in it that you never intended. You just have to, of course,
yeah,
we love
yeah.
it. I know they were honest about that too. We never intended any of this, you know,
But
especially for the racial
that,
commentary with Dwayne.
yeah.
That was never intended, but it was so. I mean, imagine that film without Dwayne in that role. If it had been someone, if
Yeah,
it
I
had
don't
been
think
a white man,
if it was
it would
Rudy
not be
Ritchie,
the same
like if it was
film.
like originally it was
Rudy
supposed to be Rudy
Ritchie.
Ritchie. If it was
I
Rudy, it
remember
would have
that.
been like, all right, you know, it's cool, but it wouldn't have had that extra weight that Dwayne brought to that role. You know, and they didn't make a point of it. Like now, if they did that in a movie now, it would be the whole point of the fucking movie. It
Oh, it
could
would
just
be.
be
We're in a
like,
totally different time in culture
yeah.
now. But
Now,
then it was just he was so lucky, you know, to be in that era
well, he always says he
and
just picked Dwayne
doing
because he
that
was the best
film.
actor, and
Yeah.
it just kind of worked out that way. And it's just like, thank God George's sensibilities at that time he was not trying to exploit the fact that he was casting a black actor. It just, yeah, he's the best actor for the role. I don't, you know, very colorblind way of casting a role. And George was, you know,
No, and
60s hippie, you know, it's like, nobody's going to care. And it's just like, whatever. And he didn't realize that, you know, in Alabama, it's a whole, it means a whole lot more than what
oh, it
it
was
does, you know.
totally, man, totally. I mean, it didn't feel like when I first saw it, it didn't feel exploitative. At the same time, if you think about when it came out, like, you know, and the ending, you know, like, of course, you know, I've heard them talk about like people, you know, sitting in the back of the theater. I can't remember who said that, but that the visceral reactions from African Americans in the theater, you know, reacting to him getting, of course, they had to kill him, you know,
Oh,
but it
yeah.
was just that, it was that, I think that having that massive success, of course, and then you have like almost a decade, right, before George does Dawn, and he was honing and crafting his skill. And I think this period actually is some of the most fascinating work. Some of his most fascinating work.
Well, it's
in
because
there.
George wasn't a horror director yet. He
No,
wasn't
no,
a horror. He was still able to test the waters outside of that and do some different
like
stuff. And it was
I'm a big Jack's Wife fan. Like I know it's a flawed film, and George had like said he would love to have remade it, or whatever, but I don't know, that's another film that left to its own devices. It works for me. I like its commentary. Yeah. My wife is not a huge gore fan, so she can deal with Season of the Witch every now and then. We watched
there's
that.
not a lot of gore in that. Maybe at the
No,
end
no,
there's
no.
a nice little shotgun blast.
Yeah,
That's about it.
that one she can deal with that. But
Jeff says, did you see the 3D version? What'd you think of it? Did you see the 3D version of Dawn in the theaters when it came out? What'd you think of it?
I have the poster, but I have not seen it, and I hate to say this because I know at the Egyptian theater, when I was still out west, I believe Richard came to the screening. Was it at the Egyptian? Somebody correct me if I'm wrong here, but I believe it was at the Egyptian. I know the Cinematic Void, I believe, had a screening that they hosted it, and they had a screening of the 3D print. But I know Josh, if he was here, he would tell you he has seen it, and he said he really enjoyed it. I know other good friends of mine that have seen it that are big Dawn fans that saw that like it. But for me, I'm not a big 3D guy, so I don't need the bells and whistles. I would love to see it, but
I'm not a big 3D guy either. Like the only 3D movie I've ever seen in the theater was Avatar, and by the time I got out of there, my head was throbbing. And 3D glasses with regular glasses, it just doesn't work well for me. But I had to see Dawn. Like it was just my dream to see Dawn in a theater growing up. Period, because it was always my little secret. Like none of my friends had ever seen Dawn of the Dead. Nobody knew it except for me. So
was that the first time seeing in the theater? 3D?
Yeah.
At the mall for the
No.
Okay. I don't know.
This was the 3D run 3 years ago, whenever it was. It played at the local theater, and we went to see it, and that was my first time seeing Dawn on the big screen. I would have fucking 3D, 2D, 4D, I didn't give a shit. Like I was just like, Dawn of the Dead's playing at a theater, the theater that I saw Land of the Dead and seen all these movies growing up. Like finally I get to see the movie that I want to see. And it was well made. It was done unnecessary, but there was still some cool aspects to it, and I thought it was a really, like I said, I haven't seen a whole lot of 3D stuff, but as far as I could see, like it didn't overdo it. Like it wasn't like when you see Friday the 13th, part 3 or whatever, they're not just like poking a pin directly into the screen just to get the effect for no reason.
Well, it was
kind
of
of added a little bit to it.
I mean, to me, not that I have a problem with it, but you just don't need it for that film. I mean, I don't know, how was the exploding head in 3D? Did it come out the screen or?
It was pretty cool. Like there were a few things that really worked really well, like when the zombie breaks the glass to try to get into the truck to get into Roger when he's got the crowbar. It breaks the glass kind of shatters at you.
Right.
Same for when they, how do we get down there? Psh, the glass from that kind of falls down. A lot of the blood effects, like when Joey Bafko gets shot when she's digging into Roger's leg, the blood comes out of the back of her head. Like that came out, and I was just like, whoa! Like there were some moments like that, but for the most part, it was. It was just, it was okay, but it was just like, it's not necessary.
Now, George was around when Richard was doing that process on Dawn, right?
I think so. I think so, because Richard had been working on that for
I know,
years.
and I mean, I know. Is it true that had that play? Probably not, but I had heard in the rumor mill, I don't know if it's true or not, but that it played an impact into why that he had a massive debt for having had the 3D process, and he hadn't made enough money back on it. But that was,
I think from what I've heard, he spent more money to get it, done in 3D than it took to make the movie. Like I think he spent like at least $1 million on the 3D restoration of that. So it was just like,
hate to say it, unnecessary. The film's brilliant. We want the 4K Blu-ray in America, please.
Good luck.
Anyway. I've heard you talk about this, by the way, too, and I kind of agree with you. But in terms of respecting Richard's, we can diss him for because we still want that Blu-ray, right? But at the same time, like I do respect the man for gatekeeping George's most, one of his most beloved works, and that it's not being mainstreamed to the point of it being in I think I heard you guys talking about that like in a Walmart or something. So
Yeah,
I agree with that. I mean, not that you don't want you still want people to be able to purchase it, but yes, it'd be nice to see a really good boutique list. Synapse would be great if they
well, they were close.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Oh,
Synapse some years ago they were really close. Like they had contract signed and everything. Like everything was set to go, but every time at the last minute Richard would come in with a new demand, or I want this, or I want this, or you can't do
That's what
this, can't do that.
That's
And
what
it got to the point where Synapse was just like, ah, fuck it, it's just not even worth it to even deal with it. So
Richard, you've got to respect the fact that I can tell you, I mean, especially since working in indie films, man, who knows George might not have been the George Romero of Dawn of the Dead if he hadn't found or collaborated with Richard. I mean, he really pulled him back from difficult times, as I understand, in terms of his the debt he had accrued.
George was in debt. I mean, he owed so much money by the time The Crazies came out that who knows what would have happened to his career if he hadn't run into Richard Romero. And just the little thing, like George was the artist. He was the nice guy. He wasn't the businessman. He wasn't that. Like he needed that in his career. Richard gave him that. He was, Richard was the spike to George's feather, I guess is the way to put it. And I mean, even little things that that George had never really considered. But if you notice, like when Martin comes out, it's the first time that anything that George had made had been billed as George A. Romero's Martin, from the director of Night of the Living Dead. Like,
well, that's what I was going to say.
Richard knew how to exploit that for George's benefit, whereas before that, it was just a name. Like, nobody really knew George's name. Like, they knew Night of the Living Dead, but they didn't know George. Like, so when Richard started throwing that on everything, it was like, oh, it's the guy that made Night of the Living Dead. Like, maybe we'll check this out,
Well, that was a brilliant move. I mean, and for everybody involved. But, yeah, definitely the fact that happened. And he had, him in his chorus. It's too bad that those relationships sort of, that they went separate ways after Day. And I know that I know I was talking with Gornick a little bit about just that period, and I don't want to misquote him, but he basically did say that, Day was sort of, that he disagreed with the fact that they did Knight Riders first out of that 3-picture deal with United Film. That he felt that there were internal discussions about how Knight Riders should come later and that they should do Day first, and that George, of course, was resisting and not wanting to because he feared that he wouldn't be able to make his the film his heart, from his heart, which really Knight Riders, I mean, it truly, as I don't have to tell you, is from his heart, and another beautiful film, especially if you're a fan of George. It might be confusing to people who are not, but I don't know. It's hard for me I can't objectively watch it as someone outside of not knowing his story as a filmmaker. But there's so much there. Anyway, it would have been interesting to see what would happen if Day had been made first and all of that.
Matt always brings that up, and when he talks about that, it's like what if Day would have been first? And I think
he might have made that original script. They might have let him go with $7 million on unrated. I mean, who knows? But they had, Knight Riders, unfortunately, was not a massive success. Creepshow was, as Gornick has said, a mild success, right? Isn't that what he said, or something like that?
Yeah.
But Creepshow also seems to have sort of. I love Creepshow, by the way. Actually, Creepshow was the first Romero film I saw, and I didn't even know it. But my grandfather, it was on TV or something, and he just turned this on. And I think the first part, I think it was right at the beginning. I watched the whole damn thing, and it just flipped me out. That was the first Romero film I saw, and then later found Night. But I was really young, so I was born in 85, so this might have been 89, 90 when I saw this on Cinemax or something. And oh man, it was way scarier than it actually was, you know.
Yeah, I think
But
everything
that I
goes
was going
back
to say about Creepshow, I felt like that, and I don't know, but it seems like, you know, Richard got really focused on Tales from the Dark Side after Creepshow's success, and that, you know, hey, we could do a Creepshow TV series, which is what Tales from I know George, sort of, my understanding, right, is that he was resisting that.
Yeah. Yeah, Richard, like, that's kind of where their business relationship started to split, is Richard wanted to branch out and do other things, produce other films, do TV, stuff like that, and you know, make Laurel bigger than what it was, whereas George was just focused on, I just want to make movies. Like, that's all. I don't want to be a business guy. I don't want my fingers in all this pie over here.
If
So
only he
that's,
had been able to, I feel like his heart, he wanted to make another Martin, you know, he could have done
oh
that,
yeah.
you know,
Which
I mean, who
Bruiser,
knows?
I've always kind of said Bruiser is kind
It
of
is.
very
It is.
similar to Martin for Romero. Like, it was kind of his return to the form. It was a personal story. I mean, it was, you know,
An angry film for sure.
oh
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
nowhere near as, in my opinion anyway, nowhere near as brilliant as Martin, but I still think that it's a very, I actually, the who was the label that released it recently? Anyway, I have that
Indicator.
released. Indicator, right? I have it. I thought it was fun to watch it again, and I actually appreciated it more than I used to. And again, I might be biased because a lot of my thinking about George's career at that point, and if you listen to the dialogue and all of it, it's interesting from that perspective. So I can't really watch.
Yeah. If you, it's the more you know about George during that time period and what he was going through, and you know where his mind was at that time, like, you can definitely see a lot of that permeating in Bruiser. Like,
Oh.
I mean, he plays the radio voice of the angry guy that shoots himself or whatever, and it's just like, you would never know if you're, unless you're like listening for it, and you're like, oh shit, that's George. It's so, but it's like you could tell like he was trying to get something out in Bruiser. And
I listened to the commentary semi recently too, and I elicited a lot of things I never knew in terms of his intention. Christine wasn't on that too. I know she worked on the film with him, but I was trying to remember if she was on the commentary track. No, I think that was something else. Anyway, it was just interesting to hear him talk about the film and the whys, and he was super enthusiastic about it.
Yeah, I
Peter
think that
Grunwald might have been on there.
yeah, it was him and Grunwald, and
Yeah.
Bruiser was always one of those films that George was so proud of when he made it, and I think it really, I think as hard as it was for him coming up to Bruiser, like all the failures that he had, you know, with the Mummy and Resident Evil and all that, getting Bruiser made, and it was something that he really loved and was passionate about, and the fact that it just kind of flopped, and like you couldn't find that movie anywhere. Like, it was just, you know, and I think that almost broke George more so than the stuff previous.
It really is difficult to. Yeah, I know we had talked about it. You had shared with me, like, you know, that letter you found in the archive, which was just kind of heartbreaking to hear, you know.
Yeah.
So personal that was even in there. But just, you know, thinking about, again, that period that he was in and how many, it was he had graduated to a different level, but then had gone back, tried to do this little micro budget movie, which was awesome. I mean, I think that's where he excelled in that, but he never really was the same after Bruiser, really, you know. By the time he made Land, he was, all right, I'm going to keep getting these financed.
Yeah. It's
so, and I'm glad, I would rather have more Romero films than, they just weren't, again, I think it goes back to what I was saying. They're a product of the era they were made in. I mean, you know, if he had been shooting Martin in 2005, I mean, what would, you know, it would probably been shot digitally, maybe, who knows?
Probably,
you know?
yeah. It'd have been, I mean,
it would not be
something
the
like
same.
that would be like, you know, straight to DVD at the time or something like that.
Sure.
Yeah, Steven says, unfortunately, I believe Gornick was right. Night Riders is a wonderful film, but it's so original that especially then finding an audience would be difficult. Yeah, I agree with that. Like, I think George knew to, like, I want to make this movie and I better do it now while, you know, I got all this, you know, goodwill, because it may not be what everybody's wanting, but
yeah,
George loved Night Riders, so
it's so again, I think I find that whole period interesting because I love Knight Riders too. I mean, I'm thrilled with the films we got in that period, right? And it wouldn't change a thing. At the same time, in retrospect, to think about, yeah, as a filmmaker too, to think about like when you have that opportunity, that he had reached this, sort of the peak of his career with Dawn. I mean, and I still, I still think Knight Riders, Creepshow, and Day are I love all three of those films dearly. But it would have certainly been a different thing, I think, if he had. And it was interesting to hear Mike Gornick talk about that that they were quabbling internally about how they were or quibbling, how they were going to be, how they were going to delegate, which project was going to come first. So I guess George had sort of authority on what was, had the last say. But anyway, interesting to think about what would have happened.
Well, we've talked about quite a few underrated Romero films, in my opinion. But question four, what do you think is his most underrated film of all of the films that he's made? What would you say is his most underrated, most underappreciated film?
That's hard too. Ooh, that's really hard. Probably Knight Riders, I want to say. I mean, I feel like so many people have not. I mean, maybe I know us fans have seen it, but there's so many people that still haven't seen it because it's not a zombie movie or it's not Creepshow and
it's not even a horror movie. That's why I'm like, that was the last Romero film that I saw. I mean, before like amusement park and all that. But like when I was tracking down all of his movies originally, like Knight Riders was the last one that I saw because I was just like, what is this? Like it's not a horror movie. It's like it's guys riding motorcycles and playing knights and shit. I was like, what is this? And then I finally watched it, and it was one of those movies, and this happens rarely for me, but it's one of those movies that as soon as it was over, I watched it again immediately. I was just like, I was so blown away by it.
There's a lot in there. And there's so many familiar faces too, right? It's like you're watching all this and you're like, oh my God. They're all in this movie together. All of these people that you've seen floating around.
It's like it's like a giant reunion of everybody previous to that movie in George's films and everybody that would come after. Like you'd see like Joe Pilato and you would see
and Tony DeLeo,
Anthony DeLeo
before Day of the Dead, and then like Pilato I know had been in other things, but he's in there for there were so many. Warner Shook I know is in there as well. I was talking to Mark Tierno at and I was like, where is he in Knight Riders? I can't really remember right now, but I know he's got 8x10 in there of him. But anyway, everyone is in there.
I mean, even just like little like people you'd find out later. I mean, of course, Stephen King has a cameo in it, but one of my favorite characters in any movie or film ever is Sweet Sal, Tony Bubba's Sweet Sal documentary. I'm so fascinated by that guy. He has a little cameo in that movie. He's the guy. He's the vendor trying to sell, cushions or whatever in the crowd.
Yes. That's right. And it just the sense of his filmmaking community, right? And again, this is going back what I was talking about before. That again, as a filmmaker, was so inspiring to see like how that's hard to do. Let me tell you too, because working in the arts or any kind of creative endeavor, people have egos, differences of opinion, but the fact that he brought so many people together, and he was always, if you listen to any interview with people, he was so endlessly inspiring to people because he was like a giant fatherly figure to everyone. At least that's and I never got to work with him. I would have loved to, but as we all I'm sure would. But it's just, I thanked him actually. I only got to talk to him twice. Once when I was a little kid in that photo you showed, and then again in 2006. And all I told him, I was like, just thank you for what you've done for independent filmmaking. That's what I told him.
Yeah, I think that's
I got him to sign a
underappreciated.
Photo,
but if you listen to anybody, you listen to Tarantino or Guillermo del Toro or Robert Rodriguez or any of those people that made their bones in the 90s, and when the independent cinema boom in the 90s, it's like George was the first one to be like, hey, we're in Pittsburgh. We don't need to go to Hollywood to do this. Just grab a camera and a few bucks and get your friends together and let's make a movie. And they all kind of emulated that in the 90s, whether they know it or not, really. But
Well,
George was one of
it's
those first like real regional filmmakers that only
well, yeah, and that's
stayed in one
again,
spot.
I think that's what I ended up being. Just again having gone out west and done that and build a career and all that, and I wouldn't change any of that in my own life because I've made a whole lot of pivotal relationships and have done most of the right things. But at the same time, it is a business, right? That's where the business is, not as much as it used to be. When I went out there, that's where the business was, and that's where the
Yeah.
jobs were. But because from where I come from,
And I
again,
felt like George never wanted it to feel like a business. And I
that's
think
right.
that's where Richard Rubenstein comes in and really
That's
helps
right.
George, help George along the way during that time period. Like I said, he needed somebody like Richard because George was I never got the vibe in ever hearing interviews or hearing commentaries or hearing him talk about, he never looked at it as like, oh, what would be the most marketable way to do this? Or, what would
Oh
be
no! Oh my
like, it
God!
was always just like,
No.
it's all about the artistic integrity of the work and not as,
Well, you
it's
can
not,
feel the integrity and the genuine nature of his. I mean, you can feel it in his work, and I think that's why his early work, especially, just feels so genuine, so
yeah.
ground level, in such an endearing way, creatively, but also just there's a charm to it. There's a brilliance about it. When you are left, I mean, so many people talk about this, but I know this even from my own work. Left your own devices in terms of less is more, right? Less money, less time, less ability to perfect. Perfectionism destroys. I can tell you from a fact because I became one of those people for a while where it's like you're thinking about how do you, and I work in a field where you're working with people that all these edits have to be perfected all the time. So your brain kind of gets in this place of,
I think it goes back to like what we were talking about with like modern film, modern Hollywood now. It's like it's
yes,
more about the technical aspect of it as opposed to just,
right.
taking a chance on doing something completely, you know, organic or outside the box. I mean, even low budget stuff. It feels like a lot of low budget stuff now is trying to look and trying to
Emulate the
follow the
high budget
same
stuff.
formula.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I
Whereas
think that
back,
the films that feel more raw or something are more interesting to me. That they feel like there's not mistakes, but you can, I don't know. It feels more ground level. Those are
like
more interesting.
I've always been like a fan of like punk rock music from back in the
Yeah,
day.
yeah,
Like at
yeah.
old school punk rock, it's like you can hear them, they missed a note here or the production
Yeah.
sounds like shit, but
The
there's
charm.
something so real about it. There's something it's human. It's like it's going back to like people aren't as human as they used to be. It's like now we get everything's
Screw me.
AI, it's like everything can be perfected and tweaked and glossed
Yeah,
over
don't
so
don't
much
even.
that
I'm gonna need to start on my second Iron City now for to start talking about AI in the film
well, I was wanting to
industry.
ask you about AI.
Yeah.
I asked George Demick about this when I had him on, and I'm always curious about especially people in the business and in the industry that are are making films and working independently. Like, what are they? Are you afraid of AI and the possibilities? But
Well, of
we'll talk
course. I
about it.
mean,
We'll talk.
and it's not just the film industry that, of course, is getting attacked, but looking at what it's doing right now. I mean, like with anything, I think there's benefits and I think there's way more problems. It's incredible that that this technology is even possible. At the same time, for me, art is something that that I can appreciate the blood, sweat, and tears that went into making this by hand, right? That for me, and again, I'm just coming from my own objective place, and that's why I'm here talking to you about George Romero right now, because you can feel through his whole career, there's a whole story there of a filmmaker who was always trying to get back to this family unit of making films, and I think that is what's so, to me, endearing about it. But when you look at AI and what that's doing and this sort of artificial nature of all of it, no, I'm not. I can appreciate the technology and just how amazing that is. At the same time, it's terrifying, and I think it destroys. To me, it's so destructive to artists who are working in the field. I mean, I work as an editor right now. There's, it's not taking my job yet. At the same time, we are, I'm not using it day to day, but I know that for instance, even writing scripts, different departments and people I worked with, a lot of times, people will come up with ideas and just throw it into whatever AI, they're using to get things done. And listen, when the studios are expecting you to do that, that's the problem, is that everybody just starts doing it because it's been adopted.
Yeah, well, like anything like the same thing with like CGI, when that computer generated graphics and stuff like that were first started. Like, if you use it, to enhance something, like George always talked about, like in Forrest Gump, using CGI to take off Gary Sinise's legs. Like, that's a good way to use CGI. But eventually it becomes such a crutch that, to the point now where it's like, if you go see a Spider-Man or a superhero movie or something like that, it's just like, it's all computers. Like, there's barely any humanity
I tell
to
everybody
it.
this when we start talking about this. It's like everything today, almost everything that I see it takes me out of it. I hardly go to the movies. It's very weird that I work in this industry, because they probably shouldn't listen to me saying these things. Anyway, no,
I hate movies.
Yeah, I hate filmmaking. No. I love filmmaking. I just don't love where it's headed right now. Anyway, that's why we got to make good ones, right? Anyway, the point is that it's the fact that everything feels like a video game. Like, everything
feels like a video game cutscene to me. It
just feels too perfected, too streamlined, everything feels like artificial. Growing up, I was also a huge fan of Aliens, Alien and Aliens, even Alien 3, even though people hate on the film. I loved it when it came out. Anyway, the point is it was practical. Alien 3 has some bad pre-CGI effects in it too.
Yeah.
But there's something about it. Man, can you imagine Aliens done today? I mean, I'm sure James Cameron would be doing what he's doing in Avatar with that. It would not be the same film. So again, I keep coming back to the era that their films are made in. It affects them a great deal because culturally we're all sort of like people expect.
And I think
but I
that's the
still watch
scary
Aliens
thing about
today.
it.
I think it looks phenomenal. I mean, it looks. There's
that's
not
the
a
scary.
scene
Yeah, that's
in
the
that
scary thing about AI. Is you say it's what people expect. It's like, when it comes to like CGI, like most people that don't have like a diehard affinity for film or art in general, really, they're just there. They just want to be entertained. They just want to watch a movie and escape reality because they're whatever reason. It's going to get to a point like with CGI, like people now. To me, I feel like the younger generation, CGI is just like these, Marvel movies and stuff, like that's just what they're used to. Like, that's just what movies look like to them. Whereas to me, this looks like a fucking cartoon. Like, what is this? Like, it's like a cartoon with, Robert Downey Jr.'s head imposed on the body or whatever. It's just like, what is this? But it's like with AI over time, younger generations are going to get so used to it. Like right now, I think I read somewhere that the #1 song in the country is an AI song. Like, it's not even, it wasn't even made by a human.
Story the other day. Yeah,
and I was just like, oh,
it's here, man. It's here. I wonder what George would have done with the
fascinating.
commentary of this, in terms of if he
God.
was around to what zombie film of the AI would we have going on. But somebody
Lord.
needs to. It definitely. Yeah, it's not headed in a great direction.
Agree. Stesio nails it here. Stesio said art needs humanity to be art. That's how I feel.
Oh, wow.
Like, it's
Yeah,
to
that
me,
was
like,
what
the
I was
best
trying to say, just not as great.
to me,
Thank
art,
you.
the best film, song, something like that, it has to, like, I have to know that it's coming from a human experience. It has to come from something.
Yeah.
It's like one of my favorite movies of all time is Sling Blade, Billy Bob Thornton.
Oh my God, you can learn a lot about filmmaking watching that. Have you ever seen the short that? Was made?
I just watched it again today. Actually, that's why it's fresh on the mind. It's like,
I'll never forget the first time I
as somebody growing up in the South that like knew people like that. Like, that's how people where I'm from talk. Like, literally, like,
right.
Perfect example. There was this movie I'd never seen before, but I kept coming across clips of it on YouTube, and I would always watch them and I'd be like, "Oh, this actually looks pretty good." And it's Denzel Washington's Flight. I don't know if you've ever seen Flight with Denzel Washington. He's a pilot, but he's an alcoholic, and he lands the plane, and he doesn't
No, I
kill
don't think so.
everybody. And
Okay.
but I kept seeing these clips, and it's like Denzel's really good in it, and the movie looks interesting. I love the concept of like this pilot who's a drunk drug addict fuck up, but somehow he is a master pilot and lands this plane and saves everyone's life. I'm like, oh, that's an interesting concept. I'll check it out. So I found the movie's on YouTube for free, so I was like, well, I'll watch the whole movie and give it a shot. The rest of that movie, outside of Denzel Washington, is fucking unwatchable.
Oh my God.
It's like,
oh my God,
poorly written, like every character in the movie, because it's supposed to take place in Atlanta, but everybody in that movie has that fake fucking like foghorn leghorn southern accent where it's like, I say, master. It's just like, what is this? Like, nobody talks like that.
Oh, no. And you can
Whereas in
sense
Sling
when
Blade,
something-
it's like, that's how people talk, like where I'm from.
Oh, yeah. No, I know that film really, that also, well, again, like I said, I'll never forget the first time I saw that film, but yeah, I haven't seen that nearly enough, by the way. You're like reminding me, but like, what a well-crafted.
But again, it goes back to like that movie could not be made by AI. You
No.
couldn't type in, oh, do a movie about this, crazy guy in the South. It would come out as, Foghorn Leghorn or whatever. It would be, because it's not the same. But Billy Bob Thornton comes from that world, and he knows how people talk, and he knows
Right.
that world, and that's what I want to
Well,
see.
it's
I
like
want to
all
see
writers
reality
write what
reflected.
you know, filmmakers who make
Exactly.
what, I mean, even with myself, like I'm working on a few shorter projects around here. I've got large projects and small projects, but I've been shooting a lot of things that are like local to where I am at. I'm actually in Maryland now, which is where I sort of grew up. I'm about an hour or so from where I grew up. And we came back here, and because there was a lot of stories and things, I just wanted to come back and be able to tell some of these stories, right? I just wanted to be local to do it, and thankfully I'm working remotely and doing that. But I got really obsessed with that idea of like, it just feels too artificial here, where I was in terms of being in Los Angeles. And I actually, during COVID, I'm going off on a tangent now, and during COVID, we just sort of slowly, we kind of fled the city, and then we were in like Thousand Oaks, and then we sort of got out of there, and then we went to the East Coast. But we were about 4 years.
We got to get farther than this. So
we just kept taking big steps away, and they were like, all right, let's just go 3,000 miles. But it's, it's really a shame to see what's happening. But I don't, in terms of the film industry with AI, at the same time, I'm hopeful, because I think that true art will always come through. I think that we'll have a lot of crap to have to deal with, and there will be a whole like sort of period where AI films will be a thing, and it may last a decade, it may last two, but
the scary
I may
thing,
be wrong.
especially
Are the big superhero movies as big as they were? It seems like they're falling off a little bit, which is a good thing for me.
Yeah,
anyway.
I just think
Sorry.
they're kind of running out of shit to do. They're like they're digging up like the deep cuts of like Marvel, and it's just like people don't even know what the hell some of this stuff is. But
well, it's all at the end of the day, it is a business. I understand that, but for me as an artist, and again, this is another reason we're sitting here talking about George. Is that I was always attracted and just endlessly and passionate and inspired by just, again, the blood, sweat, and tears that it took to make these films and to listen to the process. So I think it impacts a lot of why I'm even interested in this stuff.
Yeah. So. I don't know. But I think I was going to say, that's the scary thing about people like independent filmmakers now, or people in the business now. It's like, I could see a reality, not too distant reality, where we can individually just type in like, I want to watch a movie about so and so starring so and so, and you just type it in, and it just creates the movie for you. We're all just going to be watching our own shit at this point.
I think we're there. I mean, you can do that now. Yeah. I mean, to a certain extent, I mean, I don't know about a full feature, but I'm not trying to do that. So.
No,
I'm not the person to ask anyway. But
anyway, yeah, fuck AI.
You know, it's like the consumerism in Dawn of the Dead, and like, yeah, what if like I wonder what George, you know, what would he have done? He would have had something to say for sure about it.
Yeah, I
Would
think
have
about
been
that all the
fascinating.
time. I think about that all the time.
Twilight of the Dead, aren't they making that? Come on, we need some of that commentary in this.
I don't know if they're making that or not. Like
I don't
that's
think that's probably what's happening. Yeah,
yeah.
I'm not too. We'll see what happens. I think make something.
That's
new.
my mindset. It's like, oh, all right, we'll see what happens here.
I'd rather see some original. Just do
Yeah.
something original. You know, let George rest in peace.
Yes. All right, question 5. We're gonna get through this 10 questions at some point,
Oh
guys.
my God, sorry. Yes,
Question
let's do
5.
it.
No, man, I'm loving this. Question 5. Unmade Romero film you'd most like to have seen. What was something that he was supposed to do but didn't get made that you would have most liked to have seen?
Oh God, that is. I love these deeper questions. You know, that's really tough. Because wasn't he? Well, yeah. Okay, hold on. Let me have a conversation with myself here. I was gonna say Pet Cemetery, but at the same time, there's so many. I don't know if that's like the one I would love to. It's so hard to answer that. I mean, I'd love to see him. Frankenstein. I'd love because he was talking about doing a Frankenstein at one point, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Man, I would love to see George do a Frankenstein. I would love to see that. I'm sure there's something else that I'm not. It's not coming to my mind. You know, of course, Resident Evil and all. But by that period, I wouldn't have. I would have been worried about how the 90s would have
One
impacted.
that nobody really talks about, but I thought would have been really interesting because before Night Riders, he was actually I think it was right after Night Riders, before Creepshow, before Stephen King got involved. He was originally supposed to do this movie called Shooby Dooby Moon
Yes.
that Richard Ritchie had written, which is like a 50s sci-fi comedy thing. I've always been so curious
Don Harrison,
about.
you've heard the track, of course. And, I can
Yes,
still
yes.
hear it. Yeah,
I've
yeah,
always
yeah.
been curious, but what the hell that would have been?
And
Because it would be
you know what? I own a bunch. There's one framed right back on this wall here. If I move my microphone, but I have a bunch of these variety. Here, I'll go grab it. Why point at it? Grab it. Anyway, I have
Tear it all down, bring it over.
These variety sort of like.
Yeah.
Films of
I
George.
got quite a few of those too.
Yeah, there's one.
I love those.
Advertising Shooby Dooby Moon. Like they were talking about it being like on Laurel's slate.
Yeah, I have one of the original variety ads for Shooby Dooby Moon, and it's got artwork and everything. Like,
yep, that's the same one. Yeah, that's what we're talking about. That's why.
Yeah,
that's awesome, man. Yeah,
I know. That. I've always just been like, what
there's
would
a guy
that
on
have been?
eBay that sells these, and I think he's in Vegas, and he's probably wondering I was buying every single George Romero related thing. It's like this is actually a smaller office, but previously I have a bunch of stuff in storage, but I had they're all over the place around me right now. But anyway,
I know the feeling.
Yeah, I know. I can see that. Although I have to. Yeah, your civil defense barrel and the Dawn of the Dead TV. That's chef's kiss, man. That's amazing.
Dude, it took me forever to track one of those down. Those TVs took me forever. And shout out to Brett, 1911 guitar dude that's in here. Time to time, he shot me an email one morning while I was at work and was just like, dude, I know you've been looking for one of these. I found one on eBay.
Oh my God.
Shot over and grabbed it real, because I tried to buy it 2 other times prior to that on eBay. And the first time I put in a bid and then the guy took it down, and I emailed him and I was like, well, what happened? He was just like, oh, somebody already offered me cash for it, so I just sold it. And I was just like, well, fuck you. And then the next time I actually bought it and never heard anything from the seller, like never sent a shipping notice, never did anything, never responded to an email. It just disappeared. And I was just like, well, fuck, like it's just not meant to be. And then finally I was able to.
Yeah, well,
and then as soon as I get that, like everybody else started finding them everywhere.
This one eventually with that, that would be to have Dawn streaming on that would be insane. But yeah, I told you, right, I've been having some interesting eBay experiences lately.
Yeah.
I bought a 16 millimeter print of Dawn that the extended cut that someone had, and an unnamed individual had, and anyway, it was I paid for it and won the auction fair and square, and then he just asked me like, "Hey, would you mind? Like, my son really wants to keep this print. He's so mad that I listed it." And I'm just like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, "No, I think I want to honor and everything." And I'm like, "Why would you put it up there if you didn't want to sell it?" Anyway, he was upset that it didn't sell for more, and it is worth way more than I ended up. I mean, I did pay quite a bit at the same time as we've all been seeing. They've been going between 5 and 6. I paid more, like 22, something like that. Anyway, I won it fair and square, and then I told him, no, I want to keep it. Then he refunded my money anyway without asking. So anyway, they're out there. I was so upset. So I was like, I was this close. So
yeah, I've had that happen before. I told you about that.
I've never had that happen.
Poster experience.
Yeah.
I was like, he was like, dude was just like, I was like, I won it. Like nobody else bid on it. I won it, and the dude was just like, oh, I accidentally ripped it. Fucking poster. Well, I was packaging. I accidentally ripped it, and I was like, I don't care. Send it anyway. He's like, well, I already threw it away. I'm like, yeah, bullshit. All right.
Oh,
so I kept. Man. It's one of those where you like. I kept track of his page for like months after that to see if he was ever going to relist it, just to like call him out.
That's the same thing. I said this guy's going to relist this immediately, and he hasn't. He hasn't, because I've got alerts set and everything. So it hasn't. I think he maybe really did.
Just really keep an eye out, just to keep him honest.
Yeah, no, he'll wait a year or something, but I'll be there. Anyway, it would be great to get my hands on one of those. Anyway, you better ask this next question, or I'm just going to keep talking.
Yeah, because I still want to talk about your trip to the mall in '99.
Oh yeah. Oh my God, it's midnight.
I know.
Thank you guys. Settle in.
Question 6: favorite non-Romero zombie film. What zombie film do you like that Romero
Martin.
did?
I'd have to say Martin for sure.
See, everybody always fucks this question up, and I think it's because I always ask it the wrong way. Favorite zombie film not directed by George Romero?
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
You're not the first. I swear to God. Everybody, everybody that I asked that question to, they always assume non-zombie Romero film.
Oh man.
So you're everyone does it.
Wait.
So I'm gonna have to change the way I word that.
Non-zombie. So just my favorite.
Non-Romero zombie.
Zombie. Oh, sorry. Oh. Ooh. That's tough, man. Well, maybe it's not tough. Let me really consider that. It's got to be Lucio Fulci's Zombie. It's got to be that.
There you go. Everybody go check out the commentary we did last week.
Oh yeah, I did see. I haven't watched that one yet, but I need to go back and check that out. But I'd have to say, I mean, I want to say there's a lot of them, but there's actually not a lot of them that are like super great. But sorry, I like there is a soft spot in my heart for Bruno Mattei's Night of the Zombies, zombie creeping flesh.
Oh, don't let Larry hear you.
Sorry,
say that.
Larry. Yeah, I know. He said this to me too. Sorry.
I love that movie.
No, I saw that film. There's a tape up here too. It was called Night of the Zombies. Somebody was selling a one sheet of that on eBay recently too, and I was looking at it and it went quick. But I don't know.
So you like a lot of the Italian stuff then, dude?
I mean, it's endearing, right? I mean, I'm not saying it's great. I mean, Fulci certainly is better than Mattei's, but
yeah.
I picked up those Severin recently. The Rats and all of those. And man,
I just watched Rats for the first time here recently, and I was just like, this is what brutal. I love Bruno Mattei for.
Yeah.
The fucking ending of that movie was just like...
I liked the ending, actually.
Like, but it's like, I was watching it, my daughter walked up, came upstairs just as the ending was happening, and she was just... As soon as the dude takes the mask off and it's a rat, she just looked at me just with this curious, just confused look on her face, just like, that's it? And I was like, he's a rat. And she was just like, oh, okay, and just walked off. I was like, yeah.
That's so great. Oh my God.
The total
ending. I actually really I liked it more than I probably should have, but anyway.
Yeah, I'm a sucker for those type of movies.
It's not, again, this is not even in the same league or conversation as George's work, so no, I don't take it seriously.
It's a total other,
I think I saw, Hell of the Living Dead as a kid and was just like, wow, like how are they using this music?
Oh yeah,
that was the biggest thing. But it was still cool because these guys are dressed. It was like I was watching a bad ripoff, which I was a bad ripoff of Dawn of the Dead. But it's I don't know. I'm sure that was extremely irritating to George back in the day to see all this stuff.
I don't even know if he even paid
No?
attention to it. I don't know.
Oh wow.
I've never heard him really
Well,
just
the only
come out and
reason
say
I
like,
say that is
you know.
because I think that they had some of the, and it might have not been George himself, probably wasn't, but maybe it had been Laurel, but that they had, I believe, like advertising, like for City of the Living Dead, it was the text looked like Dawn of the Dead. I mean, you know, it straight up looked like Dawn of the Dead's text. So it probably wasn't. I think that maybe it was a lawsuit or something, but they got it changed. That's the story.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah, you're right. I don't. I don't even know. I don't feel like George. Again, George being the artist, never really thinking of this stuff as in a business mindset. I don't think George gave a shit if, you know.
Sure.
That's where Richard comes in and, you know, puts the hammer
in a way,
down.
I mean, like that, you know, as an artist it would be so flattering to have people emulating.
Right, yeah.
You know, you've started a whole subgenre, you
know. What's up, Stu? It's a new name. What's up, Stu?
I actually saw a Zombie at the Mahoning last year. Josh and I went out there and we saw it live with Fabio Frizzi and his band play the entire score. It was insane. It was so cool.
That would have been awesome. I got to get to the Mahoning. I know my buddy Ben.
You need to go, man.
He's out that way. I got to get out there at some point.
It's
that's a trip I need to make for sure.
Yeah, it's not that. I mean, it's like it's probably like a 3-hour drive from where I'm at, but it's worth it. It's worth it. I mean, if I know that a couple years ago they did, maybe like 2 years ago they did a huge zombie fest. Mm-hmm. They do a zombie fest every year, but they had, you know, night, dawn, day. They played all of George's zombie films.
Yeah,
like over 2 days, 2 or 3 days.
Yeah, my buddy Ben brought me the poster for that at Living Dead Weekend year before last.
I've got a shirt. Yeah.
From that area, he brought me the poster. I was like, "This is so fucking cool. I wish I would have been there for that."
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. Well, Josh was there, and he said it got so foggy in the middle of the night, like you couldn't see Day playing on the screen. Like, it just because it's in a field in Pennsylvania.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Literally, when I was there seeing Zombie, it was in September, but man, it was freezing cold for some reason. It was like mid-September of 2024. Anyway, really, definitely worth going. Like, especially in the summer.
I'll have to plan maybe because I always think like, oh, I'll go see something because I'm not knowing the geography as well. I remember when I was like, oh, the first time we were going to Pittsburgh, I was like, well, hey, maybe we'll swing on over to the Mahoning and check out the drive-in while we're there. And I looked it up. I was like, oh, it's fucking 4 hours away. Never mind.
Yeah,
I forget Pennsylvania is kind of a big fucking state, so
there's a lot of people I've seen. There's a lot of horror people out there, like Mike Gingold of Fangoria. I'll see him out there, and just people. It's awesome. It's like a community.
From what I hear, it's more like it's like a music festival, but for movies. Like people just hang out and party.
Oh, for cult movies and yes, and not even just cult movies. They show a lot of
Yeah, I'd go just to see every year they open with Willy Wonka and Wizard of Oz. I would love to go just fucking see that in 35 millimeter.
It's worth it.
Question 7. Favorite performance in a Romero film? What is your favorite acting performance in a Romero film?
You're going deep tonight on this. Let me think here. I love this. Hold on.
What's up, Quentin? Haven't seen you in a while, my man. Hope you're doing okay. A lot of
I'm gonna mess up this answer later. I'm gonna be like my favorite, and it doesn't have to be the best, just my favorite.
Yeah, which one speaks to you? Which one do you say perfect casting?
I hate to keep going back to Night, but like Dwayne Jones is just so pivotal for that film. I mean, I can't imagine the film without his. It was such, again, happy accident, but just brilliant casting. I could say so many people. I was just going through a Rolodex of titles to try to see it because it's such a hard thing to answer. But if I had to give you an answer right now without wasting everybody's time, yeah, I'd say Dwayne Jones is just, again,
it's a good one.
There's so many people that made that film so special. But man, he was one of them. Like I would have loved to, as I'm sure, as we all would have loved to have gotten to talk to him or for
Oh
him to have
yeah.
seen. I know he sort of was at arm's distance from wanting to talk about Night too much. At least that's what it's sort of seemed like.
Yeah, he always famously referred to it as that silly monster movie that I made back in the day, and it wasn't. I mean, Dwayne never seemed like his cup of tea, but at the same time, he died so young and so prematurely. I mean, 1988. That was
Yeah.
before, a lot of, the conventions and stuff like that. I think if he
Yeah.
would have seen, I mean, now that it has a Criterion release and it's in the Museum of Modern Art and all this
Yeah.
stuff, like it has that esteem to it. I think he would look at it differently now, and he would think about it a lot differently now than he did, back then, where to him, I mean, it was a silly monster movie that he made. Wasn't really as connected to it as the rest of the people that were associated with that film, I think. But I think there's an argument to be made that if you were to do a Mount Rushmore of important figures in George's career, I think Dwayne's got to be on it. Without Dwayne, I don't know if Night is what it is, and that the
Oh well,
performance.
that's my point. There's a
Yeah.
subtlety to his performance. Again, happy accident. I mean, he was a brilliant actor, but man, like that's another thing that we have to say about George is that I love about George, especially his early work, that he always cast a lot of theater actors, that he put his
Hmm.
trust in a lot of regional actor. John Amplis, my God, like
Yeah.
that's a huge like just the fact that he was promoted. John Amplis are introducing is in the credit and introducing John Amplis as Martin. Like
Yeah.
I don't know. There was just something about that
George was brilliant about getting the most out of those regional actors. I mean, Ray Lane and
yeah.
uh,
Whoa, I'm relaying. I mean, I'm a huge
from that time
by the way.
period,
So,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's just George just was able to find, I don't know, accentuate their positives and hide their negatives or whatever he did. But you see some of these other actors and other people's stuff, and it's just like, that's not, like you think John Amplis and Midnight or something like that, and it's just like, that's
I
it's
got
different.
I'll say there's a Midnight poster
I
right
see it.
here. I know you saw it. You're like scanning the. Well, it's actually a press book that's in a frame. But there's
I like Midnight. I like.
There's
Midnight.
an endearing quality to that. I didn't get to talk to Jack at the last or John Russo at the last. Not too much, a little bit, but I overheard him talking about a Midnight 3. Like I've just got financing for Midnight 3 or something, and I looked at Josh like, what? Like for real, is this happening?
I've heard about that financing, and I think
Ooh.
it's $10,000. I think is what. So
that makes me happy though. At least we're still playing in the same sandbox.
Yeah, there you go.
I know. By the way, you guys did the commentary for Midnight 2, which I gotta get a copy of that because I know you put a link, but
man, it's
that's
amazing.
Brutal. It's brutal. But
it
was not the
first
first Midnight is there's an endearing quality. I mean, that music. What is it about that music that just is like it just makes that movie so I don't know. I've got the soundtrack. I told John Russo too. I was like, I've got an original vinyl of it, because there was a re-release, but I've got one up there. It's like mint condition. It's awesome. But love that score. Paul McCullough. He's another character I'd love to see. What happened to Paul McCullough? I'd love to see him come
yeah,
out.
I'm famously like not a fan of his stuff in score for Night 90, but
no,
that is one guy that I would love to hear more from because, like you said, I mean, he wrote the original Mad People for the Crazies. I mean, he was there for Latent Image stuff, and he worked with Russo through all those films. I mean, but
I should have asked John Russo about that actually. Like,
from what I've heard from people that have reached out to Paul McCullough recently, I think Vulo, is the one that told me this, is that he's not in the best of health.
Okay.
And not maybe doesn't remember so much. I don't know. I'm not saying he has dementia or anything like that, but
Okay.
I think he's
That's-
just kind of he doesn't remember much about a lot of stuff. So
well, I'm a
I don't
fan.
know about
There's
I am
got
too. I would love to
I'm not
hear.
remembering the name of that track, but there's a certain track on the Midnight Score that I just love. Just love it. It's so random too. It's not the ones you think. It's not the song, the Sound Castle or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
Even though I love that, but anyway, I'd have
What's
to
up, Mutineer? Says, didn't Richard Matheson accuse George of ripping off I Am Legend, and George sort of agreed? Maybe that's why George didn't care about Italian ripoffs. That's a good point, too, because, yeah, George always, from the beginning, would always say, I facetiously ripped off Richard Matheson's I Am Legend. Like,
That's true.
he would always mention I Am Legend when it talks to Deny
Well,
Living Dead,
ripoff
so.
he was inspired by it. But yes, I mean, all artists sort of, and this is actually a quote from George, right? He used the word parasitic.
Yeah.
He said
Oh, yeah.
that in Documented the Dead, right? He said that they were parasitic of what they've seen, which has always stuck with me too. Like Documented the Dead was some of the best access as a kid to listening to how the
Yeah, that was like my film school when I was making my movies. I would just watch Document of the Dead, because it plays out kind of like something you'd see in film school.
Totally. That's another reason. Like I never first saw myself in the doc field really, but my interest led me there. But also, yeah, that film was like seeing one of my favorite films like dissected, or filmmakers dissected in that way. Like, wow, this is really powerful. Like, if it's done right.
Yeah,
but that is interesting.
I love Document of the Dead.
I'd love to know if that's true that Matheson accused George of ripping off and he agreed. That would probably be his reaction, right? It would be funny.
George always said, like, he was quoted as saying, "I facetiously ripped off George Matheson or Richard Matheson's I Am Legend." Like he always gave credit, never shied away from it.
There's so many films that have done that, though. I mean, my God.
Oh yeah. All right, question 8. We're getting there.
Okay, we're doing it.
Question 8: what Romero film would you remake? As a filmmaker, which Romero film would you remake if you had the opportunity?
I wouldn't do that because I'm not worthy. God, what film would I remake? Oy.
Yes. Which one do you think you could do justice?
I wouldn't want to. This is a hard question. I wouldn't want to do.
Okay, that could be your answer.
But
just I wouldn't do that.
No, I'm going to answer the questions. I'm just saying.
Diary of the Dead. You could do Diary of the Dead.
Diary of the Dead. That is a good, because I did make the point earlier that hey, I actually
make it what you want it to be.
That will be my answer, because I think that. Thank you, Michael. That's a very good. That's a good reminder, because I was going to say something like Jack's Wife, but I'm only saying that because George said that. But I want to see George remake it, even though I love the original. But you're right, Diary of the Dead, because to me, in my brain, I was thinking, man, it would be awesome when I thought it was going to be like this sort of journalists. Like what we're watching, it's like a mockumentary. Like we're watching a documentary put together about this. But when it turned out to be a found footage movie, I was just like, no. But anyway, I'm not a found footage fan, movie fan. Again, to each their own. I'm not knocking it. Anybody is a fan, but I just, it didn't do it for me.
There you go. Maybe that'll be.
But that's thank you for reminding me, because that actually could be. I still think that could be an interesting film.
I could see you.
I could see like a document, like this is all happening, and it's like this new lifestyle has been adopted by we're setting our way, and it's like Day of the Dead. It's 5 years after.
Yeah.
And someone has taken the time to make a film, because there would still be artists making content during an apocalypse. They would be happy. I'd probably be one of them, to be honest.
Yeah.
But there's actually, for anybody interested, not that it was an apocalypse, but the closest we've got anyway is during COVID, I actually went out when I was in Los Angeles. I went out to and shot just empty. And I was thinking about the Crazies. I was thinking about George's films, because it's hard not to. And when you're going through this this numbing experience we all went through, but being in a major city in the U.S. during that time, man, was just I took my camera. None of us knew what the hell was happening. I was just sent away from my office, and we all had to stay home. And I took all my you know, I'm an editor, so I took my edit bay home. Like I'm taking their gear home because nobody knew what the hell was going on. And I took my camera, went out into the streets in downtown Los Angeles, for anybody that's been there, and it's, you know, major city, complete. I mean, virtually
usually happening, you know,
and empty. There was nobody there, and there's like trash blowing through the streets. So I'm thinking, like, here's the Fort Myers shot, you know. Hello, you know. That's what it felt like.
I watched that video recently, and
Okay.
the thing that came to my mind was the opening of 28 Days Later when he's walking through deserted London, and I was just like, just put that music behind it, and it would be spot on. Like, it was such a weird time. Yeah, it did feel like, and I always said like, oh, during COVID, like I wonder what George would have to say about this, and then I watched The Crazies again, and I was like, oh, George already talked about this, like, you know, 40 years ago. He already saw this coming. Like, this is what we would be.
Man, I hate to say it, but I was thinking about that when it happened, you know?
Yeah.
You can't not think about it, because I think that's another reason why I was attracted to, you know, seeing Night and Dawn originally, with, you know, the apocalyptic nature of like this larger story, that all these micro stories are all linked by this larger thing happening, was extremely fascinating to me.
Yeah.
Like, larger in scale, and it just could keep going, you know. But anyway, yeah, what a time to be alive. But I'm glad I went out there and shot all that footage.
Yeah, this would be my answer to what I've always wanted to remake Martin, or not, maybe not so much remake Martin, but I've always wanted to make, like, if somebody were to give me money and say make whatever you wanted to make, I would want to make something like Martin.
Oh, well, now that I agree with. I don't know if I would remake Martin, because it's just so great. I think it's, again, such a brilliant film, in my opinion.
Yeah.
The religious fanaticism and all of this going on in it.
But I think even
great.
like the themes in Martin could still work to this day, about a
100%.
About a boy who's confused about himself, about, like, is he a vampire, is he not a vampire, like, that it's such a personal, I don't know, it's not a coming of age story, but it's just like, it's a personal
identity
story
crisis story.
Yeah.
You know, it really is. And like I said, the fanaticism of the, you know, of Kuda's character and all of this. I mean, that, I don't know, it just works so well to me. And again, I keep saying a product of the era and the budget, but man, I wouldn't change a thing about how that film was made, because it's so gritty. It was shot on reversal 16 stock. Man, that's just, and I think Gornick, tell me if I'm wrong, but I think he was never super happy with how it looked.
Oh yeah, Gornick's not a fan of Martin. Like I've heard him say
the film itself, or
yeah, he was never happy with it. Well, I think what he said, if I remember correctly, and I think this was in the Taste the Blood of Martin documentary that was on that Second Sight thing. I think he said he loves the 2.5 hour black and white cut. Like, he loves that version.
Did. Oh.
But the version that we got is he didn't like it. He wasn't happy with it. Because, I mean, they were shooting it to be black and white. As they were shooting, they were lighting it and with it all in mind to be in black and white. So that's why when you watch some of the scenes in Martin, some of the lighting is really bright and kind of blown out at certain spots.
To me, I know it just adds so much to it for me.
It doesn't bother me, but
the reversal stock, which I've shot a bunch of stuff on reversal, like, you know, Super 8 stuff, you know, not 16, but man, that's it's such a gritty look.
Yeah.
And it's just I don't know, that stuff, it looks so good. I think that film stock, they actually wasn't that stock that they had used for the Winners series.
It was like the extra shit that they just, you know, put together.
It's great.
They had left over.
Yeah, but I totally know what you mean in terms of making a film like wanting to make a film like that. Oh, yeah, that's the dream, you know?
Yep. Question 9, favorite Romero score soundtrack. And this has been a hot topic on the channel of late, if Matt's still in here. What's your favorite score soundtrack?
I know what I want to say. I'm just making sure that I'm answering correctly. First of all, I love all of them, as you know. That's probably most of them, not all of them, but first half of his career. I'd have to say Day. John Harrison's Day of the Dead. I know that's been
There you go,
especially
Matt.
when it came
John's
out.
not
But
happy. Vulo is hearing that, throwing a fit right now. He's
oh, really? I'm sorry. It is the one that I love I will say I love the library cues from Dawn more than I love the Goblin score, which it probably is a weird take. I don't know. I just feel like, or it's more lit. I'm not as burnt out on it, and also I just love it. There's something about it. When they put out that vinyl, oh my God, it burnt that thing into the ground. But no, I think Day. I don't know. There's something about it that there's something about the Day score that does it for me. I don't know why. I love
the thing about the Day
Martin
score
too. I love Martin's score.
Yeah. The thing
That's
about
a tough one.
the Day score, you can kind of listen to it all the way through, and the music kind of just tells the whole story. Like
It
because I mean it
does.
is technically scored for the movie, but if you listen to, like, if you just throw it on your stereo or whatever and you just listen to it, it tells the story of the film, like in
Well,
its
and it
highs
also
and
feels like a
lows.
little bit of a score that was for a film that didn't get made too, in a way, with all the tropical sort of
Yeah.
action stuff going on. But still, like, I don't know. There's for an angry, dark film as that is, for it to, get to the way it ends is just awesome. Like, I don't know. I love it. I don't
It
remember
actually
what my
ends with
initial
some
reaction.
hope.
It
That's why
does.
it's the only it's weird because it's so dark and depressing all the way through, but it's the only one of the original three that kind of ends with hope, where it's just like, oh, they're gonna be okay. Everything's gonna be
Yeah, and
fine.
I don't even know if we really deserved that, but that was one of those things that, like, because I don't know, are they going to be okay? I don't really know
Yeah.
what's happening. Do they have food, enough food? I have no idea, but that isn't.
But it just gives you that sense that they've let go of the world, because that's another underlying theme, which is
Yeah,
a channel here on
John's
YouTube.
character, man, Terry
Yeah,
Alexander,
channel here
that
on YouTube.
speech does it. Yeah.
Orion Trips. I'm going to have him on the show next weekend. He talks about this beautifully on his channel, but the constant theme throughout Romero's films is that the characters are always fighting to cling to the world and the reality that they've known prior to when all this started happening. They're all fighting to hang on to, like, oh, we got to, we got to save this reality that we've built. Whereas by the end of Day, the three characters have kind of just let it go. And it's like, all right, now we're gonna, soak up
And
some
that's
sunshine.
something beautiful, and it was so many problems in humanity are
Get
from
some
that sort of
babies.
conservative mindset of, like, we have to get back to how we were used to do things.
Right.
There's so many things that could be cited back to that very issue in today in our society now, which is endless. It's eternal. It's endless. So, but you're right. I haven't ever totally thought about it that way, but that's kind of brilliant. But
Yeah, I mean,
I think that's
the characters are always trying to cling to what used to be normalcy before
but
it all
that's
happened.
what makes Terry's
figured it out. John's figured it out. He's like, hey, fuck it. Like, what are you trying to find a cure for? Why are you fighting? What are you gonna do? Fight? Are you gonna kill them all? Like, fuck it. Let's get out of here. Let's spend what time we got left just, making babies.
probably that's probably my
Get some
favorite
babies.
scene in the film, to be honest. Like, I feel like the movie wouldn't be the same without that scene. And I don't know. Yeah, great score. I know a lot of people had a problem with it when it first came out, but for me, it just works so well.
Yeah. All right, last question.
All right.
Only hour and a half, but by God, this has been good. I've thoroughly enjoyed this.
Okay.
Question 10.
Hit me over the head with this
And
last
this is
one.
specifically a question for you. I always end it with, Team Ben, Team Harry, but
Oh,
I feel like
God.
you can answer that question if you want, but specifically
Oh.
for you as a documentary filmmaker, what Romero documentary would you like to make? Whether it's based on a film that he did, or a actor, or a crew member, or a character in the Romero world, or Romero himself. Because let's face it, there's not a lot of, very few, if any, documentaries specifically targeted like
I'd
George's
love to
life.
make.
You know?
I'll cheat in for the first answer, and then I'll get. I would love to make a film about telling the story of George's career from the perspective of what I've been talking about as a filmmaker, as an artist, of what he was able to inspire at the time within his crew, and like what his whole. I think the story of his whole career is extremely inspiring, and I would love to see a film that really eloquently delivers that sort of message. And
Well, do you remember years ago there was a filmmaker by the name of Rusty Nails, and he was supposed to be working on a Romero bio documentary, and they actually had a trailer for it. The stuff had been shot for it. There were interviews with different people. I remember specifically there was an interview with Penn Jillette in the clip,
really?
a clip from that in the
oh wow,
in the trailer where Penn Jillette's talking about Season of the Witch, and he's just like, Season of the Witch is one of the most important feminist films ever made, or something like that. And I was just like, and this was like early 2000s. I was like, nobody talks about Season.
It's that long ago when they were.
Yes, I remember. I mean, years and years ago.
One thing that
and it never happened. I never heard anything about it.
Well, it's really hard to. It's a fight to make any film, but documentaries can be uniquely. You got to be committed. You have to, or it just will kill you. But let me actually answer your question. Which film would I like, or what aspect of George's?
What kind of, if you were to do anything on George's career, whether it's an actor or George himself, or a film, or
and I would say the one that I would love to see is something that's really just a premium like look at George's career, and it tells that huge swath of a story, and the successes and the failures, because I think there's just a story there that and have some scope to it. It doesn't always have to be about just George. It could be about the impact of his work, that the time periods that this was happening in, and also the impact of the work.
Yeah,
starting even before Night and then with Night and onward. But I would love to. That would be the most interesting thing that I can think of right now.
All right.
And then as far as team Harry versus Ben, I think knowing my personality, I would be the idiot upstairs with Ben, probably trying to fight with the guys, and but that would make me wrong, I guess. But that would probably be where I'd be.
That's the brilliant thing about that. I mean, we've talked about it. It's the never-ending conversation. It's like who was right, who was wrong. But like that's the thing. It's like, is it better to be the cowardly, asshole of the bunch but be right, or is it better to be the brave, resilient fighter but you're wrong in the end? Which is more noble? Which is the better person to be in life? I think that's.
I love that everyone is. So I know that Harry ultimately was right about the literal be in the basement versus the upstairs, but there is some small little microcosm of that everyone is sort of wrong, and I don't know. It's this fights we're having about. No matter what, humans will always destroy themselves versus it's not actually the zombies are just doing what their natural instinct.
They're just the force of nature. They're the hurricane or the tornado or whatever. They're just,
I love that.
But it's like nobody can figure out how to fucking deal with it.
I actually love how he dealt with, even though Day's actual production and the film that was made was smaller in scale than George intended. In a way, I love when it goes, swells into its third act with Miguel going up there and letting these zombies in. I'm like, yes. And in a way, it's such a sick thing to cheer, but you hate everybody. Not Laurie and the three, but you just hate everybody's guts by that point. And there's something like kind of awesome about it.
Yeah, there is something brilliant about that, where it's like by the time the zombies do get in, and you get a little bit of that at the end of Dawn when the zombies kind of get their revenge on the bikers and stuff. But one, you're just like, just let them in, let them have it.
No, let them.
There's no reason to save any of these people.
And like I say, it's I know I can imagine why sort of the reaction today. Again, thinking about Night and Dawn and what preceded it, but if you look at it without. And I did that too. Like I kind of, I hadn't seen it, and this is years ago, but I don't know, maybe 10 years ago or something. I hadn't seen it for a while, and like revisited Day of the Dead, and just tried to watch it completely objectively without, even though I knew it was going to happen. Listening to a lot of the dialogue from Logan and like what we're trying to do, because that was the only thing that always bothered me about it, is like just the logic about how small. I could see if it was this huge underground encampment that they were doing these tests and all this is going on, but the fact that it's such a small group, like, why are we doing this still? Like, who are we reporting to? But
I've always just said, like, at this point, Logan is not really trying to figure out a solution to
Oh,
anything.
no.
He's just fucking crazy, and he's just
Yeah.
having
But then
his
you
own
wonder
experiments
about
and having his
Amplas
own
and
time with it.
Cordelia, like Lori, like, why are they going along with this at this point? But no, you got a suspension of disbelief, right? But it does. There's some just dialogue in there that's so great. So I used to think it was subtle, and I still do in some ways, but in other ways, it's so over the top and so in your face with its commentary. But it's not as clear as as Night and Dawn are pretty clear in their sort of commentary, even though that Night's might have been more happy accident than Dawn certainly was.
Yeah, Dawn was definitely more pointed.
Oh yeah.
But last thing we're about 2.5 hours in. I'll let you get out of here. But the last thing I wanted to do, I wanted to talk to you about this footage that you found, that you dug up from 1999. This was your first trip to the Monroeville Mall. How old were you when you did this?
I was doing the math. I would have had to have been 14. Yep.
14. So this is your first time in 1999, the Monroeville Mall. Like, when I saw this, I was like, man, like I told you, I was so fucking jealous, because like that's most everything was still there. Like, now you go to the mall, like, so much has changed over the years. It's gone through a lot of remodels, and it's a different they've updated it with the times, I guess. But in 99, like, it was still outside of the clock tower and the ice rink, like everything was still pretty much the same. So I'm so fucking jealous.
It really was, and I really had no sort of hindsight's 2020. Like, I had no conception that, like, wow, I'm getting the. But what I do love is that I was the nerd running around with a camcorder at 14, filming lights and this no people. It was all these random objects. So yeah, that was well done, Erica, 14-year-old me. Anyway, no, it was. What's so cool was when I was telling you at Living Dead Weekend, I was like, man, I've got a tape somewhere of the mall, and I didn't know, even as of like 2 weeks ago, I didn't know what box it was in or whatever. So I had to dig in storage, find it, found it. Then I had to order like a VHS-C adapter. Then I had to get, I had to rig up digitizing it in the right frame rate. Anyway, got it all done. So, but yeah, man, it was actually better than I had remembered. So the only thing is I was in badly need of a lens cleaning kit. God damn it. It was just like, what was all over my lens?
It's a fucking treasure, man.
It's great.
It's gold. So I'm going to play it. If you guys haven't seen it, it's available on his YouTube channel now. What's your YouTube channel? It's at Eric Walter
Docs. Yeah,
Docs,
Eric Walter
right.
Docs. So my name, ERIC Walter.
I'll throw that down in the description for everybody to
Yeah.
check out. But yeah, you just put this up yesterday, so I'll play it for everybody, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about it, because it's pretty fucking cool. So buckle up, folks.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
All right, Eric, it's really nice to meet you. I understand that you're the #1 Night of the Living Dead fan. Well, you might guess that he's still after me. After all these years, Bill Heinzman is still trying to get me. One of the things that a lot of people ask me to do is the line when I'm teasing Barbara in the cemetery at the beginning of the movie. People always ask me to do, "They're coming to get you, Barbara." Yeah. I heard that. Yeah, he heard that. Other people heard that. So there's one now. There's one of them now. There's one of them now. Yeah. How you doing, Eric?
Okay, so who's the kid with the chili bowl at the end? Who
That
is it?
is me. Luckily, I had the foresight to ask my dad to film me as a zombie in the parking lot. But because otherwise I wouldn't
Perfect.
have known how to end that edit. But
Perfect ending.
yeah, it is. But no, that was me.
That's
Back
so cool,
was
man.
blonde back in '99, I guess. But
Hey,
anyway.
that's how I think everybody had that haircut. Everybody that was the
Oh,
look
isn't
back
that
in the day, man.
crazy? I
I
know
had the
all my
chili bowl
friends
too
did.
going on.
Yeah, yeah.
That's so cool,
So,
man.
but no,
So
it was awesome. It's great watching it again with you here. It's like, wow, it means a lot to us fans to see it at that point. And you're right. Like like the fountains and the bridge and all the stuff it was all still there, which is crazy.
yeah, it's like I just the staircase is going, it's just like all that stuff is now gone, and now it's sad to think that all of it's going to be gone soon. We haven't really talked about that or how your feelings on that or what, but I mean, we know that the mall is not long for this world, and I'm
Yeah.
so glad and thankful that you did, as a 14-year-old kid with your fucking camera, go around and grab that from that time period, and then we'll always have that.
Me
Um,
too. I can't, again, retrospect now, it's like, I can thank myself, but I had no idea. I was just there as a fan,
yeah,
and that tape has been in an attic. It's been in storage. There are plenty of things could have happened to that, but it was in mint condition. It was perfect. So anyway, it was great, but yeah, just obviously horrible news about the mall's coming demise, and unfortunately, again, a product of the era we're in right now in terms of there's so many malls even here where I live, and even in the city too. It feels like they're sort of falling to the wayside. But
yeah.
so it's not surprising to me. At the same time, it was surprising to me back in June to go again and see sort of the state of the mall, because I can remember in '99 being there and telling my dad, like, man, this is the nicest. I
Yeah.
remember it was like glittering, it felt like a really nice mall. And I probably, of course, was a little biased. I love, massive Dawn of the Dead fan even then. And
Well, even growing up, like you never really saw I personally never saw too many two-story malls that had like two stories of stores. Like, so that alone, like, there was one when I lived right outside of Memphis growing up. There was one that had two stories, and I thought that was just like the coolest fucking mall in the world, just because it
yeah,
had two stories of shit. Like every other mall I've ever been to has just had that one story. So
yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's you can definitely see like all the traffic and stuff in that video of what malls used to be, what they used to look like, and it's just not it's not that anymore.
My
And
wife
I
watched it and she's like, she's not nearly into this as much as we are. She's seen Dawn of the Dead more times than she probably would like to admit, but she knew, just watching it, she's like, oh my God, it's kind of sad to think about like how things were so much better then, in terms of you don't see people on
yeah.
their iPhones, and
Well,
it
dude,
was
going back to when we were talking about going to see Dawn of the Dead in 3D, um, back when it during that run, like I remember going to see it. I saw it twice that weekend in 3D. Second time
oh,
I went.
I would have too.
Second time I went, I just went by myself for a matinee because I was like, fuck it, I'm gonna go see it again. I got nothing else better to do. And the big thing I took away from it, there was a guy with his kid, probably 9, 10 years old maybe, that was there watching the movie. And after the movie was over, we were walking out, the kid was all excited, and I was like, oh, he liked the movie. That's pretty cool.
Oh,
But he was
that's
just
great.
But then the kid just looked at his dad, and I was walking behind him as we were walking out of the theater, and he looked up at his dad, and he's like, "Why don't we have a cool mall like that? Like, what? Like?" And I'm just thinking, like, this mall from
Uh,
1977. This kid is looking at it, like, what is that? Like, why are malls looking like? Where are those malls at now? And this kid's never seen a shopping mall like that. Like, the mall that he has is probably half empty, and there's old people doing all weather cardio. Like, that's all he sees. Like, that's what a mall is to him. Like, for
Talk
us
about a
growing
time
up, the
capsule,
mall was like the place. Yeah.
It's a time capsule, and it's awesome to hear that reaction in a way of that he enjoyed it, but also it's just Yeah.
Well, it was just so foreign to this kid. Like, this shopping was the coolest shopping mall in the world. And I told him as I was walking out, I was like, "Oh yeah, I go to that mall. That mall exists." And he's like, "Oh really? Like,
I
not
know.
that mall, but it's still there, you know."
Yeah.
But yeah,
I
that
know,
it really
man.
dawned on me. I was like, there's a whole generation that just has no affinity, no interest, and it's just the mall is like the place where mom and dad go to fucking Burke's Outlet Mall or whatever stores are in malls now.
I know.
Um,
I know. It's such a sad state that it's in now. And going and seeing it in June, I told Josh when we were there, like, wow, this is it. It's just sad to see what I remember it being. Which you see some of that in the
yeah,
video. But I remember I probably spent an hour in there. And by the way, I love that I went in there and shot Dawn and Day on the VHS that's in there. There's some other
$9.99,
shots.
man.
I
You
timed.
couldn't
There is
buy
a
those for
little bit more
$9.99 now.
footage. There's a little bit more footage. So of course, I timed that to the track from Dawn, but
Mm.
there's a little bit more. Like I had like I think there was like a DVD of Night in there or something. And anyway, not a whole lot else left on the table, but it was cool to see the staircase. That
Yeah.
now, like, wow, that stuff's
The
gone.
fountain and
The
yeah,
fountain
the
and
bridge and all the and it's sad that you see them all now and like all the all the vegetation and all the the decor that made the mall what it was is no longer there. And I think that's a big part of it too. It's like the experience it died years ago when it comes to shopping malls. It's so
yeah,
sterile now.
yeah.
There's nothing that separates it from any other mall anymore.
It's
And that's just how every mall is now, really.
it's a practical effect. I think just a natural effect of just yep, the internet and cell phones and all the rest of these things that we all use, and but it's with every great advantage there's always disadvantage. So
Yeah.
in with the new, out with the old, I guess. But yeah, it's awesome. And I think again, it's just bringing it back to documentary. I think that's what's so cool. At the time, I never would have thought like nobody's going to care about this but me. I'm just a kid running around with a camcorder. But it was cool to share it with you and with fans of people that care a lot
Yeah.
about how this, and now especially with it, the mall, the news about the mall, it's
Well, I don't know if you were ever
point.
like I don't know if you were ever like me growing up, but like I felt when it come to like my love of George and his films and Dawn of the Dead especially, like I felt alone. Like I was just like nobody else is interested in this stuff but me. Like I grew up playing in bands, so like I always had stuff in common
Oh,
with my
nice.
friends when it came to music and stuff like that, but
Right.
I was always just like, oh, Mike's the zombie guy. Like he just likes it, and I'm just like, well, I like Dawn of the Dead. Like that's my thing. And they're just like, what is that? And I'm like, don't worry about it. So like, none of the like I always felt alone. And when I started doing this channel, the whole reason I started doing it was because like I wanted to talk about this stuff and nobody else wanted to talk about it with me. So I was like, well, I'll fucking talk about it. And if anybody wants to talk about it with me,
Well,
that's
I'm
cool
glad
too.
you did. I never would have met you if you hadn't, because
Yeah.
literally it happened that way. As I was just looking for, I must have been looking, I guess, for Tales from the Dark Side, like I mentioned. I don't know what I was looking for, but somehow
And then
I landed on.
here's me shitting on some episode. Or I'm just like, oh, this is
But then
horrible.
no, you weren't shitting on it, but it was more just funny listening to your reaction. And I watched all of them. And then after that, you're like, no, I'm just going to throw in the towel on this. And I was just laughing. Like it was kind of funny to me. But no, I listened to a whole bunch of your stuff. And so I've been, like I said, I've been a fan for like 2 years now. So it's awesome to be talking to you. And then I ran into you at the show and everything. And,
Well, yeah,
but
I'm
yeah,
glad-
as far as feeling alone, like, fortunately for me, I mean, certainly, it's we all have our own interests, and nobody that I know, other than my cousins, are as passionate about Romero as me, that I know personally in my life. But at the same time, when I was a kid, I always managed to get people, like friends that were
drag
my
them
age.
along. Yeah.
No, I did. I mean, they would come over and we would watch Night and Dawn. Like I had people that even they would come over and we would watch we'd have a slumber party. We were going to watch Dawn of the Dead, as like a 10-year, I don't know, maybe I was
did
12.
that. I remember my 13th birthday. Dawn of the Dead was on IFC, and I had all my cousins and everybody over, and I was just like, we're watching Dawn of the Dead.
Yep. And you remember the year that was it? I keep mentioning Cinemax, but was it Cinemax that George was like in the Evans City Cemetery and he's doing these intros, and they showed Creepshow at Martin, Dawn, Night. They might have shown Night, but I know they showed those movies. But it was like I think it was Cinemax, man. I think it was.
So, yeah.
And I remember it was like 98, and it was around the time that John Russo was shooting that godforsaken 30th anniversary.
So you're not a fan of that? Then?
No, I can't say I am. But no, no, let's not even go there. Anyway, I was just trying to. I haven't seen. That's another one I haven't seen in so long, but I have no interest in revisiting.
You're not missing out on much.
So I did own that DVD though. I'm back in the day. I got it.
I have multiple copies of it, so
yeah.
I have it on VHS and DVD, sir.
Hated that score. Oh my god. Oh, what is the score doing?
The score. I won't get into it, but the score is like it's like one of the only things that I don't think is absolutely terrible about it. Honestly.
Oh, wait, now it wasn't as bad as the preacher and all of the stuff.
Yeah, the acting and the wraparound stuff, but the score itself, like I do. There are certain aspects of it that I do enjoy. I will say.
Yeah, but I'd have to go back, and I remember, didn't they say that? I think Russ was talking about like we've shot it with the lenses or something that we used at night. I think they did.
Yeah,
but somehow it doesn't. It just
doesn't. Yeah, it's not the same.
No, you can, and there's no. It's just unnecessary. But anyway, the point is that they had that marathon, and I remember that marathon. We were watching them, all those Romero films. Yep, I have Cinemax. I think they're on YouTube. The little intro. Larry's got them on his channel, I think. Actually,
yeah, I think so.
Larry. But no, I remember that and them talking about where they might have had some sort of like promo of the Night 30th anniversary.
That's probably what it was.
I think there was a promo or something of that. I remember. But anyway, what a time to be alive. I remember those days fondly. But I was able to recruit some fans. I don't know if there's still fans like I am. I never left that whole.
So I used to do that. Like my cousin TJ, he was I always looked at him. He was the Savini to my Romero. Like when I would make movies, like he would do the effects. He would do the stunts. He was the star.
And
he would always be like whatever girl I was dating at the time. I would always throw her in the movie, and he was always the romantic interest or whatever. Like it paralleled so well. But like I would always like sit him down. Like if he stayed the night over at my house, like I'd always sit him down and be like, "Dude, you got to watch Martin. We're gonna watch Martin." I mean, I would just show him everything.
How old were you? You're telling people to watch Martin. I love this. This is amazing.
12, 13, probably something like
That's awesome.
And he would take it and he'd be like, oh yeah, I found but he didn't grow up to be a big fan of that stuff, but he was always down to like every weekend, like growing up, like I was straight edge growing all through high school and stuff. So weekends for us was, what are we filming this weekend? I'm like, well, I spent all week in class not doing homework and not doing what I'm supposed to be doing, but like writing out, scenes and what we're shooting and a shot list and everything. And this is what we're doing this weekend. So we'd all get together and do that. Everybody else is out getting drunk and doing whatever. You
and I sound identical because I was doing the same stuff and a lot of it.
And that's why I was so excited to get you on here, because just talking to you at the mall a couple weeks ago and hearing you and Josh talk about growing up shooting stuff, I was just like, dude, that's me and my cousin growing up. Like that's
We'll have to do this again sometime and have him on.
Yeah, absolutely. You gotta get him on, man.
Yeah, we need to. Because oh my god, well I've like tortured those Josh and his brother, like his brother especially would tell you about how I like would be making these blood, we'd be doing like these horrible squib hits and stuff, but somehow it would always ooze into his eyes, and I'm like, no, you'll be fine, and it would just go in his eyes immediately, and he'd start like, these are little kids. I'm out here like.
Yeah.
No, we're gonna do these. When it was like tremendously graphic.
Just jump off the roof onto this trampoline. You'll be fine. You'll just bounce right off. It didn't work. Do it again.
Oh, yeah.
Do it again.
Yeah.
I lost focus. Do it again. He's just climbing up on this roof and jumping off.
But it's just the best way to learn. I mean, and not all of them I did were. I mean, a fair amount of them were zombie movies because I was always emulating that. Because we just go down to the cemetery and we do our own version, and I could never board up a house, So I would
Yeah.
have like, oh, I left my key.
That was always an issue. It's like, how do we pretend to board up my parents' house while they're asleep? You know, it's like we can't really hammer anything. We'll wake them up and they're like, "What the
Oh
fuck are
yeah,
you
it was
doing?"
hilarious. And I would always like make a version of this, and then we would remake it again the next year or a few months later or something because we would get better. You know, we would now
Yeah.
we're really gonna perfect it. But I did a version, and it was like full size. You know, this is in the '90s, full size VHS camcorder or whatever, and you know, Midnight 2 quality. But no,
Probably
it
better,
was.
honestly.
I don't know about that. We'll see, but I still have all this footage. But that would be something to look at. Oh my god! But no, where was I going with this? I'm rambling now. But basically, yeah, my friend would get attacked by a zombie in the cemetery and like lose his keys, and then he would get home and he can't get inside, so he would board himself up in the garage. I would use my parents' garage to be like,
There you
that's
go.
where everybody's barricaded in, you know. So it would be the same story. Anyway, horror films are great because you can learn.
You gotta figure out how to work around those budgetary issues. You can't have a house to board up the garage.
Well,
man.
yeah, and it would be, I left my keys in the graveyard. I'm not gonna break any windows. We're just gonna board up the shed.
Well, see,
Okay.
you mentioned you mentioned when you were filming in LA during COVID and how it was deserted and everything. Luckily, the town that I'm from, they roll up the fucking sidewalks at 9 p.m. and there's nobody out after
You
9
couldn't
p.m.
tell?
So
Oh,
we
yeah.
would go out, we'd take the cameras out after dark and just go downtown, and it looked like it was deserted. It looked like nobody'd been there for years. So it worked to our benefit that way. So yeah,
Right.
we take advantage of those situations. I shot trying to do Dawn of the Dead. We shot at our local mall that we would always go to every weekend, and everybody there was so cool about it. I don't know how they do about it now, but we'd be in there with like, you know, fucking, you know, fake guns and shit, like toy guns, just going through this mall.
Oh, you
like,
went to the mall and were trying to like do your own version. Oh, that's,
yeah.
you did
And-
better than me because I didn't do that.
Well, we were
That's pretty awesome.
We went every weekend, so pretty much everybody knew who we were. But I was always running around with the camera. We had the toy guns, and I had my
Oh, that's
cousin.
awesome, man.
We went into, it was a Dillard's, I think. I had my cousin go in and pretend to steal, you know, jackets and stuff like in Dawn of the Dead. Just take handfuls of shit and walk out. And
Do
at
you
one
still
point,
have this footage, you gotta.
oh
get
yeah.
Oh,
It
that's
was for a movie called 40 Days of Night. This was
Wow.
prior to 30 Days of Night. I didn't know what it was. It was you know, this was probably early 2000s. But it was a
Wow.
movie about a guy waking up and it's just complete darkness, and then over periods of time, you know, what we called sleepers, which were basically zombies, but they were sleepers because it was nighttime, you know. So they would they would slowly wake up and rise up against this one guy who had inherited the world, type of thing.
I see.
And
So
so
you ripped off Richard Matheson. You did it.
yes.
I'm
I
just
ripped off Richard Matheson as well, by God. But we went into this mall at this Dillard's, and the guy working there was an older guy, you know, and he sees us with this camera and pretending to like take jackets and stuff and walk off, and he's like, "What are you guys doing?" It's like, "Oh, we're just making a movie," you know, and he's like, "Oh, okay, oh, that's fine, go ahead."
Go
And-
ahead and make a movie.
Yeah, he's like,
that's-
"Go ahead, take whatever you want, just make sure you bring it back." And we're just like, okay, so we would take just shit and just walk out with it and keep shooting throughout the mall with the jacket on and stuff, and then take it back. Like, they were so trusting, and they were just so cool about it. I don't know.
Man,
Best
that
times
was
of my
one-
life, man.
That
Best
was
times
one.
of my
Oh,
life.
absolutely, me too. And I remember, you know, I wouldn't take any of this back, but like thinking about like just the big backyard mentality of like we got away with so much crazy. I mean, I couldn't even. Yeah, I did so much crazy stuff in terms of like making. And I'm still that way in terms of like nothing. You know, hell or high water. It's gonna happen. No matter how many years that I would spend making a documentary or a narrative film, whatever it is, you know, there's a determination there. But I've always been that same way. So that's really interesting to hear that you also were doing those things it was all sort of inspired by George's his
Absolutely.
work. And again, I said, you know, to sort of close this out and where I started, you know, finding that VHS tape of Night of the Living Dead back in the 90s when I did, and I don't know when it was, but mid 90s, I'd say. Yeah, it changed my life. And it was still to this day, you know, just a huge impact. And, you know, having been able to look watch all of his films and read more about his work and his collaborators and the financing and all of it's endlessly fascinating. But man, there's just some magic to that first film that just they weren't even aware of, and you could never really recreate it today. I know there will be more films that we can't even probably conceive of that will, or maybe they won't be films, maybe some other art form that will do a similar
AI.
thing. Not that one.
There would be
But,
an AI Night of the Living Dead.
Yeah.
But no, I get what you're saying. It's like they hit on something with that film that they weren't aware of, and I don't think they could recreate. I think they tried to recreate it with Vanilla. They were wondering, like, let's do Night of the Living Dead in a different genre, and it didn't work. Like, I love
Isn't
There's
that
Always
interesting
Vanilla,
to think about how, like, they did Night and then they ran in the other direction, and I totally get that. And then after Dawn, George also kind of ran in the other direction immediately.
Yeah.
So, and I get that because he was sort of fighting to be like, hey, I don't want to be typecast. I want to show my true colors as an artist.
He just wanted to be a filmmaker. He didn't want to be a horror filmmaker, a zombie filmmaker. He wanted to just tell stories and make movies.
And
it just kind of.
I would have loved to have seen. So it's easy to be like, oh man, he was typecast, pigeonholed, whatever you wanted to call it. But at the same time, man, like most filmmakers or artists never craft, such a legacy. So, he was so talented and so lucky from that perspective, because there are so many talented people out there that don't even get that opportunity. So it was the right time and the right venue and the right place. So,
and I think and I've talked about it before when, his quote to Suze was like, oh, I have no legacy. Like, nobody gives a shit about my work or anything like that. Like, and that was kind of the thing that endeared us, or me at least, it endeared me to him. It was just like,
he wasn't he was.
He never got it. He was never so full of his own shit to where he was, oh, I'm an important, filmmaker and I'm this and I'm that. He was just, a guy trying to tell stories and trying to do what he loved. And, that's
it's bigger
in any
than
aspect of
that
life.
point, it's bigger than, I think so many artists end up, their work transcends their life, their physical life, so it makes sense that he would not, even though he was certainly aware and obviously around to see, to have that immediate success and having the collaborators like we were talking about that he was able to market off of Night of the Living Dead success so many years later, and like, oh yeah, by then it was a classic, and Dario Argento put up financing for this. Like, that's amazing. Like, it took years to weave that whole picture, but it happened. And there's a story there. So you asked me, like, man, what documentary? Because that would be the documentary I'd love to see made about George. Like, that really does a deep dive. That isn't just talking about zombie movies. It's talking about him as a filmmaker, as an artist too.
Yeah, because
in that time period.
And I think I've heard people ask me, it's like, how do you do a channel solely devoted to one guy, one series of films?
You're doing a pretty good job so far.
I'm insane. That's usually the question. I'm insane.
It's love, man. It's passion. When you're like, there's people out there. Is it a niche audience? Certainly, but
to me, like, the story of his career, like, there's so much to dive into. There's so many twists and turns. There's so many peaks and valleys, and the tree that of filmmakers and everything that spawned from Romero. There's so much to talk about. It's like I never seem to run out of shit to talk about, because I can always go into, let's talk about John Russo this week, or let's talk about Tony Bubba this week, or we can talk about whatever. Like, there's so much there, that there is such a rich story there that I don't. And granted, I'm more familiar with George's work than I am most any other director, but I feel like there's more, just because of what George went through and the integrity that he had throughout his career to stick to his guns and make what he wanted to make and the
That's
fights that he went through to get
that's
it
it.
made. That's so interesting to me. And there's so, like I said, there's so many peaks and valleys to his career that I just don't, I find that more fascinating than covering George Lucas or whatever. Somebody mutineer mentioned George Lucas, and I don't know much about George Lucas. Maybe it's a similar thing for his career, but to me, like it's such a unique story, and it's such an American story about a guy saying, "I'm going to do this, and I'm not going to play by these rules. I'm not going to go to Hollywood. I'm not going to do the traditional thing. I'm
Right.
going to do it my way,
Right.
hell or high water." And I just find that there's so much meat on that bone, I guess. I don't know for me,
No,
but
amen to that, man. You said it beautifully, and I mean, yeah, that was also essentially what I was trying to say is that it's just there's such a story there that it's so inspiring, and for me, especially as someone who's making films and working in the film industry and seeing sort of the good and the bad side of things. If you listen to really a lot of what George talks about, he talks a lot about how difficult the landscape, and a lot of some of his interviews, the late 70s, early the 80s, when he's talking about making, you could still make an independent film and take it to distributors, or get a couple $1 million to make a movie or something. Like
yeah.
you still can, but man, it's just a different landscape now. It's just total. It's we're in a different world now. So yeah, like I keep saying, blood, sweat, and tears. What went into it that is such a huge part of George's story, and he never lost, no matter what sort of peak or valley he was in his career. He never sort of lost sight of that sort of family unit, how he wanted to make films, and he always that was his guiding light. So, I mean, yeah, there are different phases in his career, where I wish that, even though I love a lot of the films he did in the later 80s and things, not all of them, but, I like Monkey Shines. Like, I like it. I don't love it. I like it. But
That's pretty universal. I think pretty much most everybody's like, I like Monkey Shines. I like Dark Cat. They're fine.
I picked up the Umbrella box set and recently watched it a couple times actually over the past couple of years, and I like the movie. I think the score is a little too much.
Yeah.
It's too whimsical or something. But other than that, I don't know. I like the movie. I think it's fun. But
They're well made. I mean, they're technically good movies, and George, they're good. But those
heart
movies to
is
me
missing, though.
yes, they lack
that sort of just started to fade out after Day of the Dead. It just started to.
they lack that thing we've been talking about. Just that piece of Romero where it doesn't feel personal to him, or it's not a story because they weren't his stories, but it wasn't something that he was trying to get off his chest. Like I'm interested in that when it comes to an artist and art. Like, what are you feeling? Like that's what attracts me to you. I want to know what your thought about this is. What's in your head? Those movies are fine, but it's not. I don't think Romero has a particular love for monkeys, or you know what I mean? Like,
no, I think that you got to put. Listen, I could be totally wrong, so this is just me assuming. I'm sure somebody might know better than me, but at that point, he went off on his own. Right, he left Laurel. He left his this whole team that he had cultivated. He was the spearhead of, and walked away into into the wild and into the industry. Was down in Florida, right, and I know he had teamed up, or Grunwald, isn't that how that went? And he brought when they optioned the rights to Monkey Shines. Anyway, it just started to become like more of a one-off after a one-off, and another. It felt
like George was trying to
build. Yeah, he was building a bigger career on his own.
He was trying to play the game. He started to he felt like if I'm gonna keep doing this, I got to play the game type of thing.
Well, man, there is such a that's another reason why I admire George, that he was able to make so many independent films in the 70s, and like that he kept doing all that. Like that amount of contact, the amount of work he was able to do for those independent financing is unbelievable. Like, man, and the fact that a lot of those films didn't make money and he still was able to somehow pull all that off, unbelievable. Like, awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, playing the game is unfortunately, like, especially today, like trying to, like I was talking about, I have a project right now that we're talking to, that we're developing at a streamer. It's a documentary project, a 3-parter, and we're working on it right now. But it's like nerve-wracking because so you don't know any of these people yourself. It's like I'm the type of person who wants to work with that family unit too, and like that was always how I grew up doing things, and how I it's not even just growing up. That's what as an artist, I like feel like I generate more energy, get more done that way.
Yeah.
And it's not even just about control. It's more about just like there's a camaraderie and an artistry to it that's just hard to describe. And it's just not the same when it becomes corporatized, when it becomes something that is streamlined. But at the same time, I'm sort of defending George's decision making, even though I don't like it. It's like the reality is like that is sort of the reality of getting things financed. So that decision that when he left Laurel, I mean, yeah, that was a huge. Well, if he had stayed, I wonder what would have.
It's interesting because like he was supposed to do Pet Cemetery after Monkey Shines, and that was a Richard Rubenstein produced film. So he would have reunited with Richard shortly after. So who knows if more would have come after that.
Right.
Because I mean, him and Richard didn't leave on bad terms or anything. Like they didn't split ways. I hate you, fuck you, whatever. Like they were still on pretty good terms when they split. It was just, business is business, and it's time to split up, do our own thing. But it would have been interesting to see if he would have, if he would have gotten the ability to do Pet Cemetery. If
that's why I
more
almost answered that way earlier. Like, I would have loved to have seen that, but I still stay with the Frankenstein, just because that would have been more his. That would have been more fascinating to see how George.
Well, you see it with like Bub and Day of the Dead. Bub is a very Frankenstein's monster type of character. Literally, I mean, it's Frankenstein's monster, literally.
I haven't seen the new Del Toro film yet, but again, I just it's so. I shouldn't knock something that I haven't seen yet, but it's just so.
I get you.
So Netflix.
I think we probably feel the same way about it.
It takes me out of it. I'm sorry. Like, and it's like you're looking for something that just isn't being made. That was the reason why I decided to shoot. Even that little silly piece I put together at LDW, like was just let's make this look as close as we can to versus me actually shooting on a film. Maybe I'll do that in June. I'll bring a 16 millimeter.
There you go.
Reversal.
Well, you did a great job, man. Like I said, I've watched that fucking video at least a dozen times at this point. It's
but I agree with you.
And
well, thank you. And Braddock is missing in there, man. That was the biggest.
Well, that's next. That's your sequel, man. We got to get you to Braddock and. I don't know.
Yeah.
There's multiple locations.
You gotta. Yeah, we'll have to chat, but you'll have to. Yeah. There's got to be some more deep cut locations that I've got to think. Oh, and some of the vanilla ones too that I've seen on Larry's channel. Have you gone into?
Yeah, me and Matt will take you to the Skybus location where they.
I saw with the. Oh man, that's awesome.
It's still there. The phone booth is still there. Like of course, it's it's not that anymore. It's just a platform, and I think it's basically like a maintenance storage or something now. But
we'll have to. We got to do that. I was, and I own all of my. As I was saying, I own all of my own gear. So I've got some toys around here. So we can make something happen. That'd be fun. Anyway,
you got anything coming up soon you want to plug or anything you can mention? I know you said you're working on some stuff now, but you can't really talk about it.
Well, I do have I'm always doing a million things. That's part of my problem, by the way. But no,
that's good though. It's good to keep busy.
Yeah. No,
better than sitting there twiddling your dick. You know what I mean?
No, definitely not.
I got nothing going on.
Not. I've got. There's something I've been working on for years that it's in the true crime field, and it's down in Florida that I've been working on with a private investigator down there that somehow have made my way. It's a very long story, and I can't go super into it because we've just signed an agreement with a streamer for it. And anyway, it's something that I have been working on independently for years, but because a lot of legal, there's some legal hurdles with doing it independently. Let's put it that way. And so we've gone to try to get it done. And let's face it, a lot of the, I learned this the hard way too. A lot of the true crime sort of field is all regulated to streamers now. So
yeah,
I don't love that, but at the same time, I want the story to get out there, and I want to do justice for this person's family and these people so there's a lot of like weight you're carrying as a filmmaker and working in that field. So yeah, the good news is there is something very hopeful that it will go the way I want it to go. But I am working on something that we've just signed a development deal that we're kicking off this week actually. So it's like just happened very recently, but this has been going on for quite a bit. But so that's happening, and then I've got some I'm always doing short projects. And finally, I figured out stop trying to my Amityville Horror, which was the first feature doc that I made, was totally independently financed for if I remember, like $250,000, and it was it was totally nobody. I didn't have to answer to anybody. It was totally me and my crew and the whole 9 yards. But
it's really
we
good.
need
man.
a whole nother.
I tell you, like
podcast.
I told you before we came on, I wanted to talk about it a little bit, but I don't think we're gonna get to it tonight. But you did.
No.
It's really good. It's a movie like the Amityville Horror. The film is not one I have not seen that movie in decades, probably since I was a kid.
That's probably good.
I'm
Because I'm
not
not a fan. You could probably tell I'm not really a fan of the films either. But the films are what messed this guy up, to be honest.
Yeah. But yeah, the documentary really drew me in and really started making me think. Because I think you said before we came on, it's like it's not really about the films or the actual incident that happened. It's more about this guy, this Danny, and how it affected him in his life. And I'm a sucker for characters. I'm a sucker for interesting people. Like that's why I talk about Tony Booba. I mean, I say Tony Booba. He makes Braddock seem like it's filled with the most interesting characters in the world, whether it's Sweet Sal.
Well, that's a good storyteller, man. And
it is.
And that's what Danny Lutz, who, as Michael's referencing here, was the oldest son of the Lutz family. So it was the first time any of those children had been interviewed publicly ever. There were 3 kids in that family that all the books and the movies and this whole Hollywood subgenre had been created from, spawning starting in 1976 after they left that house and everything they owned in it, claiming that it was possessed. And of course, the year prior to that, there had been a mass murder in the house. I won't talk at length about this. In fact, Amityville at this point, it's like something I can barely it feels like going back to Nam for me. It's like I can't even, it's like hard to even open up.
I got that vibe. Was that when you asked him at the end, would you take a polygraph? And
oh my
it's
God.
just like I thought he was gonna reach over the fucking camera and grab you or something.
Threatened. And that, by the way, that was the first day of filming too. So, oh yeah, he was.
Good way to start.
Great start. I would have shot a whole lot more for the film, but he got to the point where he shut down and wouldn't do any more. But
yeah,
we were really lucky. But you're right to point in or to key on that whole film is a character study. I mean, it was about it. Unfortunately, I don't want to make too much fun of I don't want to make light of it, I should say, of the topic, because whatever your feelings about the paranormal are, or whether this house was haunted, that wasn't really my focus. The focus was on this man as a haunted man, who was like, at the time he was 45. He was like a 45-year-old with a 10-year-old still trapped inside of him, or a 10-year-old in a 45-year-old's body. This guy, I believe, would pass a polygraph test, and I think there's some consciousness now in hindsight that there's some things he talks about that I think he levels at George Lutz, who was the patriarch of his stepfather, who was, if anybody knows anything about this, up until the time of his death, was sort of the figurehead of the story and was sort of controlling the story in the public. And then after that happened, I was the first person to make a film about Danny, Danny was sort of the black sheep of the family who came out and had a whole lot of dirty laundry to air about what he thinks happened. And I think there was a lot of unfortunate, abuse that happened at the hands of George. It seems that way anyway to me. I can't say for sure.
Yeah, that's kind of the vibe I got watching.
But so it really wasn't about, you're very right to key on sort of the character study of it all, because that's what it was for me. But it's a fascinating story how that film even happened. It was, I had been very very interested in researching that case, and when I grew up on the East Coast and did a lot of research on that, the actual, I never thought the films were all terrible, especially the Michael Bay remake. I wanted to go burn down the neighborhood.
That goes without saying.
Yeah. So anyway, it was, but it's never been done right. But the story itself, I actually really got interested in the sort of controversy surrounding it, and developed with a friend of mine sort of a web archive for it at the time that was called Amityville Files. It's no longer around, but back then we just had, message board, and it was those days in the early 2000s. And anyway, after I moved out west and was working, I get contacted by a guy who said he was in touch with Danny Lutz, and I'm thinking, okay, this isn't real, and this can't be, true. And I was like, well, can you send me a photo? He's telling me all this stuff, and he said, and it was like, there's no denying, he looked just like, Kathy, the mother. And so anyway, that's where it all started. And I took a digital audio recorder with me, not a camera, and went there and just recorded hours of audio interviews. And it started to become this, here I am, this like, at that point, man, I was 24, 25 or something. And, well, yeah, around that age. And, I'm like this young, clean cut guy. And then I'm getting together with Danny. Danny Lutz
who's
looks
not clean.
He looks like he just got back from Alcatraz. Like he's like not taking any shit. And so it was so awesome. The dichotomy between the filmmaker and the relationship. And he approached me immediately about my faith in God. And
so I wanted to ask you about that whole scene where they're with Lorraine.
Yes.
And she's
Lorraine
like,
Warren, The Conjuring. That's really her. That's the real Lorraine.
And she's like, are there any non-believers here? And he looks over and he's just like, you better speak up now, or I'm just like, what the fuck's about,
This was such a difficult, in hindsight, it's like, I would have made a totally different film now. And part of what I haven't seen the film in so many years, but like part of what I actually liked, it felt kind of like a European film in a way, because it was so like, I remember thinking that after it, and people have told me this, like, because their reactions, it's very, it's not super streamlined in its storytelling. It's very kind of haphazardly, and that again was a happy accident. It may be happy, I don't know, but I always thought it worked for it in a way. But that whole, anyway, I would have done it differently today. Let's put it that way. But the point is that looking at it with Lorraine's reaction to, asking about, is anybody here does not believe in God? This all stems back to a conversation we had in the beginning, and I would have loved to have tied that. Anyway, my answer, of course, I was agnostic. And he took that as a total affront to, like, we can't work with this guy. There was this whole thing that happened. We can't work. We can't. I can't tell this guy, Mister. He doesn't believe in God and all this. And I said, I didn't say that I did. I don't know what I'm not a believer. Prove to me.
Right.
I had also told him, hey, as a documentarian, I don't know if you want me to be in a bubble. Of course, I have my own beliefs, but it's not about me, right?
Well, I wonder.
I think documentaries, you've got to be objective.
I wonder people have probably laughed in his face and told him he was full of shit and he was lying all of his life. I wonder if you not being a believer in this in that world and in that maybe that he felt a little I don't know, threatened by that you would immediately be, oh, you're full of shit, or all this, if you'd be ultra skeptical from the start, just because you're not coming from a place of, a religious background where you would believe in demons and the devil and stuff like that. I think
Well, I think
maybe he's defensive in that way, perhaps. I don't know, but
I think he was. Yeah, he was like, well, why are you interested in my family and my story and all this? And I said, it's not your family's per se. It's this whole controversy surrounding this. And I said, I'd be proof to me. And honestly, I think that My Amityville Horror, the documentary, I think that for anyone who doesn't believe in hauntings or the reality of, I think you can't walk away and not think something happened. Something happened to this man to make him who he is today, and whether it was real or not, I mean, but there's so much going on there that's never super clear, but in a way I love that it is that way, that it sort of allows the viewer to make up their own mind, or if you think he's full of shit, fine. If you believe, fine. Anyway, it was fascinating people would come up after the festival screenings and talk about, oh my God, how this changed. This was the most moving experience. And some people would be like so angry, by the end of the movie because of the answer he gives when I ask him, would you take a polygraph? He gets violent. I mean, angry. Yeah. That I'm like,
I think he says like, I'm going to see you after this is all over or something like that. And it's just like,
yeah.
Jesus. Yeah.
Anyway, it's like, yeah, you couldn't, there is somebody that came up to me after the screens and was like, you'll never again find someone so compelling like this guy. Because if anything, for all his faults, and I think that's part of something that really reaction to the movie, a lot of people hated it because he's not a likable guy.
Yeah.
At the same time,
he makes it easy. It's easy to dismiss him as crazy.
Yep.
Because of his personality.
Yep.
And I think that's
part of what I would change today is capture more. And I wanted to back then, so I should give myself a break. But it was impossible. I mean, he just got to a point where he just wouldn't do anymore. So, but I was super lucky to have gotten to be able to do that in general. But yeah, man, it was a wild ride to say the least. Anyway,
I imagine as I was watching it, I was like, "Wow, this dude." I'm sure this dude was a fucking handful to deal with.
It was incredible. Honestly, man, it was incredible. I mean, since then, his brother Chris has come out and talked publicly, and a friend of mine's did a streaming series. I can't remember who. Showtime did it. Anyway, I think it was like a 3-parter, but. Yeah, there was another series that came out, and his brother has since. But at the time, we was the first time any of those children had ever spoke publicly, and yeah, difficult film to sort of absorb. And even for me now, I kind of like to not watch my work after, because there's so much I've done that no one's even seen, but you kind of have to they're like time capsules, like my mall footage, just like we'll dig it out of a box 26.
Well, for you it's like your version of Night of the Living Dead. Like George didn't want to go back and watch Night of the Living Dead because all he saw was all the shit he would have done different and all the shit he would have changed. But
well, that's exactly
for me, as somebody who'd never seen it before and really knew nothing about the case, like it was fucking.
Well, I appreciate that, man. Thank you
captivating.
very much. And thank you I didn't know you were going to do that, but and that we were going to talk about.
Well,
this,
see, like I started out, I was just watching it because I was like, oh, I'm gonna have him on. I'm gonna check out his movie. I saw it was on Tubi. It's on Tubi, everybody. If you want to watch it, My Amityville Horror. Yeah, it's on Tubi. And I was like, well, I'll watch it. And I'll put it on the background while I'm working on something. And then I found myself just sitting there watching it, and then I was just like going through my head, just like trying to figure out. I was like, well, is this guy telling the truth, or is this, is he conflating childhood trauma with this story? Of it does a really good job of drawing you in. So,
well,
whether you're a fan of it,
it's less than me. It is him. I have to credit him because I was.
Yeah, like I said, I'm a sucker for captivating character human beings. Like I'm that gets me every time.
Me
And
too.
the
I mean, I
fact
think
that
the
he's
best,
interesting, you know.
the best narrative and documentaries are done that way, man. You know,
Yeah,
so
I agree.
it's all story and all character. But yeah,
Well,
incredible opportunity.
I'll be looking forward to that Romero documentary you got coming out soon.
You know
So
yeah, that's what I'm. It's that's what's coming up. I'm just this is
building up.
all there's
It's all
all
coming.
you know,
It's all
but that
coming
would
ahead.
be great. Wouldn't it be great? We should all do that, you know, because the people who really know all this stuff and put that together. But
Hey, you just tell me when, where, and what I need to bring,
go
and
to the
I'll be there.
Garth and get their blessing. No, it would be that's the film I would love to see. Yeah, it's something that really tells that story and not you know, I love the zombie films, but I want to hear more about like the artist. In fact, how about that exhibit in New York right now? Have you heard about this?
Yeah.
Okay, I really want to go. I know that
I would
they
love
were
to, but yeah, it's I think
know.
John Willow actually helped on that. So he
Okay.
contributed.
Is
some
it
stuff
still
to that.
going on? Because I had the website up in a tab for the longest time, and I know that on Halloween they were having like probably a screening or.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but I remember seeing that and thinking like, shit, I would have loved to make the trip if
I
had
love
the
that
money
it
and
was
the time.
focusing on like apparently on facets of his career that are not as talked about. See, that's the stuff that I think is the most interesting to me that I still want to know.
Me too.
So,
like, I just want to know. I just want to know more about Nancy Romero. Like,
oh
I
man,
want to know more about her and then that whole thing. You know what happened there? But
Susanna Sparrow.
Who the hell is Susanna Sparrow? We gotta
That's
figure
George,
that out.
right? I mean, who is it? Is it George? It's got to be.
Well, they think it's like just a pseudonym of somebody that worked at St. Martin's Press at the time. Probably is what I've heard, but nobody can say for sure.
Okay.
So who knows?
But Nancy, that's another one that's a big mystery. Yeah, I would love to know more about that. Is she still around? Do we even know?
I think so.
Okay.
I haven't heard anything, but again, I haven't heard much about Nancy in general. So, but yeah, there's plenty to dig into. But man, I appreciate you coming on here for 3.5 hours and chatting it up with me. This has been a blast.
I knew this was gonna. I said, and look, by the way, the movie ran out. I was like, maybe.
The movie's run out.
Ran out a long time ago.
Usually, I got lights dying out back here, but I got
man.
my smoke detector's beeping for some reason, so I might be.
I didn't hear that.
I don't know what the hell's going on.
But no,
here,
for real, man. Thank you for the invite, and thank you for being so awesome. Start this channel, and no, it's great, man. Let's keep talking, and yeah, it's just great to get all out of it for someone who knows all this stuff, you know, to get this all off my chest, because it's like I didn't even.
That's why I started the channel. I was just like, I got to get it out.
I usually overthink all this stuff, but when it comes to Romero, I don't need to study. I just know everything, you know. So thank you for your thoughtful questions and for just the awesome conversation. It's awesome. So I'm a fan. Like I told you, I'm a fan. Keep it up.
I can tell. Anytime I can go in here and just chat it up for 3 hours and 30 minutes, and like I have no notes. I have 10 questions here, and then outside this took an hour and a half, and I was like, cool. Like it worked out perfectly for me. So I have nothing else. I was just like, let's just see where it goes. So
but they were great.
That's usually the way I go about it.
They were great questions. I wasn't expecting all those, so I really it made me. Other than answering Night of the Living Dead, it made me really think. Like,
made you think.
Okay,
that's the point.
I'm still questioning some of them, but you know.
Well, hey, anytime you want to come back on, man, just let me know. And next time, bring your cousin with you. Bring Josh with you.
Let's do that. That'll be the next time we do it. We'll get Josh on here, and he can add more commentary to all my craziness, like how I poured blood in his eyes and all of that. Yeah.
You know how you can barely see out of your right eye? Tell me more about that.
Yeah, tell him about your ailment. He'll wear his eye patch for that interview. There we go.
All right.
All right, man.
Shout out to everybody in the chat. You guys were awesome all night long. Sorry I didn't get to a lot of your comments or questions, but you know how it goes.
I talked way too much. I'm sorry.
It always goes that way when you get somebody on here. But you guys are awesome as always. I'll see you guys next week. Like I said, next week I'll have another guest, Orion Trips, on YouTube. Check him out. Does some great videos on Georgia stuff. Really thoughtful, really interesting stuff. So check it out. I'll have him on next week, and have more fun and frivolity talking about George Romero next week, as always. But check out shop.alfaromero.store. Like the video, subscribe to the channel if you're new, all that fun shit. But until then, thanks again, Eric. It's been a blast. I'll talk to you soon, my man. But until
All
then,
right.
everybody, have a great rest of the weekend. A great week next week. And my fucking beeping is getting on my nerves here. But
Put those batteries in, man. Come on.
dude, I just changed it. I think that's why it's beeping.
That's probably why it's doing it.
Yeah, it's going crazy, but I'll figure it out.
All
But
right.
until next week, guys, you guys have a great rest of the weekend and stay safe, stay prepared, but always stay scared.